은신,
경호님 안녕하세요. 빙상님도 안녕하세요.
숨기,
이번 주 쓰기 진짜 어렵네요.
은신,
이번 주에 돌을 몇 개를 터뜨리는 건지. 근데 이게 이번 주가 시간은 진짜 많이 남잖아요. 어픽스가 끌리는 게 없으니까. 근데 네임드 살리기가 너무 빡세가지고. 시간은 나와도는데 시클이 안 되는. 뭔가 약간 그런 거 있어요. 이번 주는 분명히 각 잡고 계속 박으면은 성과는 나올 텐데. 그냥 하기가 싫어. 이번 주만큼 진짜 글로벌에 힐러 많이 구하는 이런 주간은 없었던 것 같은데. 글로벌에 진짜 힐러 많이 구하더라고요. 네, 그냥 거의 대부분의 파티가 힐러를 구하고 있는. 이번 주가 약간 그런 것도 있어요. 이제 워낙 막 쫄들 잘 놓고 그러니까
은신,
딜러들도 그냥 별 생각이 없어. 그냥 별 생각 없이 딜컷 안 하고 화열 쭉쭉 올라가고 아주. 그래서 생기 좀 살아나면 좋겠네요, 저도. 07이 머지 않았다 그래서 저도 지금 신기를 디우르나를 잡을까 말까 막 고민 중인데, 물론 내가 잡겠다고 해서 뭐 잡아지는 건 아니지만 제가 요즘 막 팔고 있는 그 양손 무기 이론, 저도 양손 무기 들면은 그냥 흔한 글로벌 양손 딜러가 되어버리기 때문에. 몰랐는데 저 그 뭐지? MDI 인트로 부금이라고 해야 되나? 거기 거기에 저작권이 있더라고요. 그지 같은 거. 그래갖고 지금 그 중계 대회 뭐라 그래? 대 공식 저거 화면 저거 소리를 잠깐 꺼놨어요.
I'm here with Nagura and Syro. Of course, later on, Tendles and Dratnos will also be joining us. But first,
누님
Nagura,
두 분
we
같이 나오셨네.
really didn't get to talk as much yesterday, and I want to catch up. So far, of course, two teams we haven't
오늘
seen
해외
just yet. We'll
설치는
talk
되게
about that
고생할
in a
거예요.
second.
이게
But who are
항상
you most
매
excited for today?
본선이라고 해야 되나?
I mean, I'm definitely
본선
excited to see Cheese, right? Because we haven't seen
그
that
둘째
team at
날은
all, and
경기가
we're all really
6경기를
excited to
해요.
see how they're performing because they haven't really played together
막 그
before. But they have all of these
하위팀
star
패자조
players in
경기도
that
막 보고
team, so
그래야
I'm excited
돼서
to see that. I'm also excited
경기도
to
엄청
see what
질질 끌리고.
MDT has to show because they're one of our lower seeds, but they played really well yesterday against Thunderstruck. So I'm excited to see them, and of course Monka, our favorite,
저는
to
오늘
win
앞에 두
this
경기만
whole
보고 갈
weekend
거고요.
in the quarterfinals here in the first match.
Yeah, looking at that first match, Syro, we have Monka going up against Thundered. Now, Thundered actually looked pretty strong yesterday, given for what seed
치즈가
they were
어제
actually coming in, right?
Yeah, and at the
치즈
start of the
같은
day, we weren't
경우는 어제
completely
경기를 했는지
sure
안
about
했는지
how good
모르겠는데
their
2대
team was
0이라고 돼
as
있네.
we were able to compare them to some of the
어제
teams
그
we saw from
중계가 안
our
됐어요.
prior
그래갖고 뭐
games with Thunderstruck who
시간
were
때문에
participating in
그런지
the
뭐
previous
사전에
season.
경기를
They looked
치렀거나
pretty strong, and they could definitely
노쇼라고 돼
be a
있어요.
little bit of a challenge for Monka here in the quarterfinal. Now, I still do expect Monka to take that series, but it could be a little closer than we initially expected.
Yeah, we'll talk about the maps in a second, but right after that, you already mentioned it, Nagura, we are going to see Cheese for the very first time going against Thunderstruck.
그럼 오늘도
And
노쇼일
how
가능성이
did you feel
있겠네요.
about what you saw from Thunderstruck so far?
사사하게 가야겠는데 진짜
Yeah, I'm not sure about
노쇼는
Thunderstruck
좀
because I mean I think they looked pretty good, but some of their strategies almost seemed like they were maybe like they looked
이게 아마
flashy, and
본선까지만
maybe
뚫어도
they weren't
상금이
as
있을 텐데
efficient as because they were innovative, right? They had new things. They snapped the breakers onto the last boss in Ashervault, for example, and it looked like a cool strategy. But then when we looked at the time at the end of the dungeon, it
왜
wasn't
본선
as
뚫어놓고
fast as
노쇼를 내.
Thundered, and Thundered is the lower seeded team. So
오늘도
I'm a little bit
노쇼하면은
worried about them, but again, I mean they come up with new strategies all the time, so it is possible that they have something completely new. So I'm really excited for the Cheese versus Thunderstruck series as well.
Yeah, me too. I think that's going to be real exciting. We're going to have a look at our match pool for today. Of course, that first game, we're going to start
아,
with
별궁이
the
벤이 안
Green White
됐으면
Bulls.
좋겠다.
First dungeon of a series, always one they have
노쿠드는
to
사실
play,
뭐
which also means we're going to get a little bit more of
뼈리
that
막 뭐가
Alcathar
없는데.
Academy that we saw yesterday for the first time, Zaro. How did you like the Alcathar Academy at the moment?
프레그넌스가 나와요?
Running fortified bolstering storming in there.
Yeah, bolstering Alcathar is a pretty rough dungeon because it's pretty well known for
히드가 프레그넌스인가
really
혹시?
large trash pulls.
어제 나오질
There's
않아서
some
멤버를 못
interesting
봐서.
strategies coming out from the teams that played Alcathar Academy yesterday. You know, one of the
네,
main
치즈가
drawbacks
프레그넌스?
of that dungeon in regards to bolstering is that area around the cross.
딜은 세겠네 그럼 파티.
Kind of tiny eagles and the two
파티
big
딜은
eagles
겁나
that you
세겠네.
wanna focus down. We saw teams actually mass rooting the small pack of eagles in the sky so that they could focus down the large eagles, and then once the large eagles' HP got low, they then pulled those.
그냥
bolsters
악사로
out. That
나왔어요?
was kind of
그래도 이거
idea on how to
그럴
use
때는
bolsters
악사 안
in that
쓰겠지?
dungeon, but we've also seen
프레그넌스도?
less of snapping so far this week, and I'm not sure if that's just a safety play for the early rounds because you know you're faster than the teams you're playing against, or if we could potentially see some faster strategies coming out, you know, potentially today or tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm very curious if teams are going to shift their strategy just a little bit more. Before we go away from
아,
this
별궁이
graphic
벤이
here,
안 됐으면 좋겠다.
the
진짜.
last two games of today bring us two new dungeons that we
보고 싶은 거
maybe
지금
will see
이거
before. I'm not too
별궁하고
sure on whether or not they will
두
be
번째
kept
경기
up to their
알게타르
point.
하고.
Our 23 dungeons that Shadowmoon Burial Grounds has been on 23 for the past 2
이 아부 안
weeks as
쓰는 거
well.
에바죠
But
좀.
that knockout this weekend looking pretty scary, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we asked the teams which dungeons they're most afraid of and which they think the easiest are. And I think a lot of the teams actually said
어제 그
Shadowmoon Burial Grounds is
몬카에서
the
화법하고
easiest,
수삭
which is
끝냈는데
interesting because it's at 23,
썬더스트럭인가? 그거
right?
똑같이
That's the highest
따라했거든요.
key level, and we've seen other teams
그게
before and in
각자
previous
연습이
weekends,
된 건지 아니면은
teams struggled the
보자마자
most
그냥
with these
따라해서
high
쓴
levels.
건지 그게 되게
But then no
궁금해요
good
지금.
offensive, on the other hand, I think a lot of teams
그거를
said
진짜
that's one of
보자마자
the
바로
most
카피해서
difficult
쓴
dungeons for them
거면은
because
썬더스트럭도
we
진짜
also know
대단한
live
건데.
keys, SPG being one of those easier keys, so maybe they're not too worried about the higher key level there. But no good offensive with Sanguine especially is making the dungeon quite a bit harder.
뭐 거의 비슷하게 하긴 했어요. 그러니까 뭐 사고 안 나고 뭐 시간은 조금 느렸을 텐데.
We really did that. The knockout looking scary. I think that's
1, 2데스인가 하고 그냥 바로 했거든요.
match pool for me personally at least. So really curious to see how our game 10 is going to deal with that and whether or not we're going to see it before. We never know, right? But yeah, with that, I think our first team is getting ready. It's going to be Monka against Thunder.
별궁 어픽스가 진짜.
Before we go there, I want to know who predicted
와,
Thunder.
별궁 어픽스가 진짜 좋네.
Because I know I did, but I asked yesterday, and other people were also looking for Thunderstruck. So,
이 정도면은
what about you? You were Thunderstruck, right? You're having a lot of
진짜 1렘에 전쫄 다 붙여갖고 해도.
A couple
I'd
Thunder
love to see
teams,
what
a
everyone
little
else
bit of
is on.
confusion. Oh, a lot of Thundered. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Looking at the weekend winner and the runner-up seems to be, I think this is the first time ever we have a unified
C조는
winner
약간
and
이견이
runner-up.
없네요, 보통.
Not sure. I think
C조에선
there's
이견이
always
되게
been one
많았거든요.
outlier before. Not even Telos this time.
네, 해설자들
Everyone has gone
예측인데.
with Monka and Cheese. And that's really something. Speaking about a team we haven't really
치즈를 어제 못 본 게
seen
진짜
before in that
아쉽다.
constellation, like you said earlier, Negoro, right? Like they're not new players, but a new constellation. So it's really exciting to me to see everybody kind of get behind them and feel like, oh yeah, they're definitely gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very cool because a lot of the players, I mean, we know of them, right? I think everyone knows Fragnance, used to play in Echo, of course. And then we know Fem, he's a very famous live key pushing player.
이제 아마 예선 끝나고, 그러니까 본선 끝나고 이제 파이널을 한 달 정도 뒤에 하는 걸로 알고 있는데.
And I think that is something that is incredibly important, especially when you form a new team. Because if you have experience with each other, at some point you'll realize, okay, maybe this is more efficient, maybe we practice this instead of that. But
그냥 바로
if you're
한 주
a
뒤에
new
했으면
team,
좋겠다 이거.
then you really need this
아,
one
별궁
person
벤이네요.
that knows what you should be
노쿠드
doing.
보겠네.
And you need a smart person when it comes to routes. and
노쿠드가
efficiency.
폭군이긴
And I do
한데
think that
뭐
Fem
엄마
has
야,
for this team.
노쿠드는 진짜
And that's
이게
why I'm so
몹을
excited.
뭐 어떻게 모을 수 있는 그게
Yeah, we're
없어가지고.
gonna see them in the second game of the day, but first it's going to be Monka versus Thunder, Zairo, and I saw your eyes looking at these
심지어
map
그
plans.
에코마저
Tell me a little bit about
노쿠드에서는 뭐
that.
특별한 걸 보여주지
I am
않았거든요. 그러니까
very
특별한 게
certain
없나
we're
봐요.
going to see that Naka defensive guaranteed here. It's the
몽카는 뭐
second map
있을래나?
of this series.
사실 별
Interesting.
기대는 안 돼요. 노쿠드.
Abathar being banned out by Thunder and Court being banned out by Monka.
루비는 어제 했던
I
거고.
wonder what the reasoning for the Court ban would be for Monka, but
팝업의
that's
수사 한 번
the
더
later on.
나오겠네요, 이거.
Of course, we're going to see the Ruby Life Pools, but then going to Knockhood, then Azure Vault if we do get to a third map. This is going to be a crazy series. That Knockhood, like we've been talking about, that's going to be a difficult dungeon.
Yeah, they
Absolutely.
banned it before, right? Like they banned it against Dismissed as well in their first series yesterday. So there's
they
something
actually?
in
Okay.
Court of Stars. They either just, I don't know, maybe they're really scared of the dungeon, or they just really want to keep a strategy a secret, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to ask them or find out about that later. Teams are getting
이래놓고
ready
화법이
right
안
now.
나오면?
Yesterday, both of these teams played that Mage and Disc Priest, which is something I'm always very excited about, mostly for the Disc side of things. So I'm curious if they're going to play it against each other, and we'll see mirror matchup in the teams here with the Mages, Nagura.
I think so. I mean, yesterday we saw them both, as you said, played at Fire Mage. And when we look at the timers, yesterday Monka cleared this dungeon in 15 minutes and 45 seconds with 0 deaths.
15분
Thunder played
45초
in
어제.
18 minutes and 33 seconds with 4 deaths. But you also have to mention that Monka actually made a mistake and they pulled Thunderhead on accident. So Monka can
Yeah.
probably go even faster.
이게
And I
누나들이
also
영어
think
발음이
Thunder
되게
can go faster
정확하네요.
because they had those 4
누나들이
deaths.
얘기하는 거는
So
귀에 좀
yeah, even
꼽히네,
though there's a
영어가.
3-minute difference in those timers from yesterday, I still think Thunder can go a little bit faster, but it's going to be very difficult because Monka is looking really good in Ruby.
Remember, Thunder actually can make up a ton of time because they had to foreman the first boss, right? So
어제랑
they have a lot
같은
of time
조합?
they can make up. This could be a lot closer than
썬더드가
we usually expect,
어제
but
같은
we're
조합
already
했었구나.
underway. Both teams using that pre-timer invisibility
이게
push to get
양-
past the first
양팀
trigger
조합이
round. We're off to
같으니까.
the races here with this first
야,
massive
썬더스트럭이
full damage
카피한 게
army.
아니고
Correct.
썬더드가
Correct.
카피했던
Actually
거구나.
peaked over 1 million damage yesterday, so let's see if he can recreate that magic here once again.
Yeah, we do see the Bloodlust being popped and all offensive cooldowns plus defensives being used as well, with all of the passive healing coming in from Nature's Vigil, from the Feral Druids here, and then the Disc Priest, of course, providing all of that damage reduction and the absorbs as well.
이게
really helping
어제
out here.
그
Skylark
썬더드
and
법사는
Alex
마주를 안
also
받은
doing
줄
all of their defenses to
알았는데
make sure they
마주를
don't survive as
받네요.
well. And so
그냥
it's a little
법사
bit
딜
for
차이가
Monka
많이
here.
난다.
Monka's
얘는
being
그냥
bolstered some
가볍게
of their
100만,
stuffs pretty highly.
109만,
Now they're using
110만.
their CC,
어제
their knockbacks,
105만이었거든요.
and so on to make sure that Skylark is not getting hit by any of those bolstered mobs. But you can
야,
see just
화법
how big they are on both
아니 화법 발화
sides.
사이클이
And
그냥
now they are
똑같은데
engaging the mini
그냥
boss as
몹이 잘
well.
모이고 안 모이고
Because
차이가 있는 건가?
yesterday we saw that they're actually pulling all of this into the boss, but they have to be a little bit careful because all of those extra bolstering stacks on the
보니까
mini boss
어제는 확실히
cause
부족이
some
마주를
issues for
받았던
the
것 같아요.
tanks because of that tank attack that this mini boss does.
썬더드가 좀 더
So
과감하게
they're
램드를 바로
just pulling
붙여줬고
everything into the boss. They don't care about the bolstering stacks. They're just
아무튼
going with the
지금은
right
더
way. They
빠름.
actually end up pulling the first boss
아무튼 지금은
quite a bit
썬더드가 더
earlier
빠름.
because of that. However, they will have to worry about those bolstering stacks on the mini boss. Quite a few more than Monka had on their side. And look at the damage coming out on the group every time those hail bombs come out on these teams. So much for that disc priest to deal with.
지금 그 강화가 안 풀린 상태에서 그러니까 단쫄이 남아있는 상태에서 바로 램드를 붙여서 지금 탱커가 굉장히 아파요. 방벽 들어가 있고.
Once it dies, so there's going to be a lot of damage on Skylark for a long time here. Thundered, don't have to worry about any of that.
썬더드가 그 램드 풀링이 빨라서 그냥 그만큼 계속 앞서고 있네.
Skylark running out of cooldown, still have one shield wall left, and last stand just came back off cooldown as well. So there's some extra cooldowns available now. But yeah, very difficult, very scary for the tanks here on this boss. Not only on the tanks,
썬더드가 여기까지는 그냥 많이 빠르네요. 이거는 어제 몽카가 보여줬던 택틱을 바로 카피했던 것 같은데 어제 보니까 하루 동안 연습을 해서 썬더드가 약간 그 뭐라 그래야 돼 숙련도? 숙련도가 어제보다 좀 생긴 것 같아요.
And then additionally, you have to watch out for the charge of the mini boss. You always have to make sure that you dodge out of the blazing rush. And then on top of that, you get those red
어제도 이
swirls on the top
정도까지는
as
못했던 것
well
같은데.
from that other ability from the mini boss. So definitely very risky pull for both of these teams. But it's looking really good. And look at the boss's HP. They're so close to each other. Monka just getting ahead a little bit. They were actually behind in boss damage for most of this boss, and now they managed to get ahead, just really focusing the boss here and just passively cleaving down the mini boss, while Thunder maybe focuses the mini boss a little bit more.
보스 체력이
It's really
역전된
hard to say
거는
'cause they've just been neck and neck the entire
태그?
time here, and I think there's a really good point to be made about
확실히
what
몽카 쪽이 게임을 좀 더 잘하는 애들.
today. I remember at the start of their dungeon yesterday, they kited their trash once it started to
법사
fall
차이?
on the first pull backwards toward the entrance of the dungeon.
힐러들은 썬더드 쪽이 좀 더 세네요.
It was so much faster than theirs, and they were wondering, well, what can we do to go faster here? Yeah, they just kited the trash out of the boss, just like Monka did yesterday. That's a huge, huge time increase for them. And see, it's really keeping them neck and neck with Monka. Both teams now have dealt with that.
뭐 어차피 세 경기 다 하면 무조건 몽카가 이기긴 하겠지만
So we're gonna be within seconds of each other as the first boss goes down. This is a crazy matchup.
그냥 근데 썬더드가 생각보다 잘해서
Yeah, this is so
이거
cool to see
몽카가
that Thunder is
어제처럼
keeping up with
그
Monka. Of course, Monka
어제
beat
그 뭐야
Arden
라자게스 애드
this
나서 그거
week
잡고
into
갔거든요.
this weekend.
그 정도 사고 한 두 개 정도
This year,
있으면은
but Thunder is really so close behind as Monka is now moving to that ring area. And remember, last time we saw Monka doing Ruby life pulls yesterday, they actually accidentally pulled Thunderhead. Now, I don't imagine they're gonna make the same mistake again, but watch out.
6초밖에 차이 안 나요.
They are gonna be using that mind soothe.
사고가 없으면 무조건 몽카가 이길 텐데
They're trying to move past. But
어제 여기서 라자게스 애드
here is that
났거든요.
these
몽카
scorchlings, if you pull them, the mind soothe is not really
애드가
gonna help
두
you
번은
out
안
because
나겠지?
they're still gonna be
예.
body pulling the boss. But this time around, they actually managed just fine, and now they're pulling two destroyer. It looks like they're on their way to attack that second destroyer.
훌링이
plus that
동일해요.
shield in between. So this is gonna be a pretty dangerous pull for Monka, as Thunder is almost doing the same thing on their side too.
Yep, going for the same strategy, but not quite grouping it as nicely as Monka. Everything now stacked together for both teams. Got to keep an eye on the Inferno damage coming out on the group. That ticking damage from both of the Blazebound Destroyers. So much
그냥
damage.
아무 일이
Double
없었던
debuffs
것처럼.
for Bazook to heal through for Thundered here. He has the help of the Nature's
여기서
Vigil.
포인트는 저 그 화염 파괴자가 강화를 먹기 전에 그러니까 메인 타겟부터 죽어야 되거든요. 그게 포인트예요. 어제는 화염 파괴자 두 마리가 좀 동시에 잡혔는데 잠깐만 저 화염 파괴자 강화축 먹었거든요. 오 법사 이거 사제 죽었어. 이거 강화 관리가 안 됐어요. 어제 라그나 썬더드가 더 깔끔해요. 이거 뭔가 모른다. 이거 3경기 갈 수도 있다. 업틱스가 쉽지 않아요. 어제 뭐야 몹들이 좀 더 잘 모였던 것 같아요. 네, 어제 너무 잘했어. 이거 또 라자게스 패스하는 것 때문에 시간 걸리고 썬더드 잘하면 1경기 잡을 수 있겠는데
doing so much more damage because of the bolstering stacks, but somehow Thunder managed to actually heal through that and survive that bolstered destroyer
이렇게 되면은
that Inferno, and they managed to
몽카가 별궁 그 밴 때린 게 약간 신의 한 수가 될 수 있어. 별궁 같은 것도 짧은 던전이라 사고가 나면 뒤집어질 수 있거든요.
Doesn't look like they're having any issues here. They are of course recovering their cooldowns. They're not going to do any crazy pull just now as they're gearing up to pull the boss in just a second.
내가 몽카 설명할 때 얘기를 했었는데 이게 확실히 고점이 높은 팀인데 저점도 좀 있는 팀이거든요. 실수를 좀 하는 팀이라 어제 너무 깔끔하게 잘 돼서 오늘 약간 방심한 것 같아요. 지금 저 데스윙 타이밍도 좀 안 좋고
you just can't run past, otherwise it'll proximity pull. And when you're already behind, waiting those 5 to 10 seconds, and they're doing it again now with the Mind Suit, they're just waiting for it to fly away. They're just losing so much time because they aren't on the same cadence of dungeon pulls that they're used to. They're just falling even further and further behind here. Look at how low this
썬더드
destroyer is for Thunder. Almost
2층
dead
마지막
by the time
풀링
Monka just gets to
거의
the core.
끝나가는데
Not to
몽카
mention,
지금
still
시작했어요.
20 seconds of death timers that they have to chew
이거는
through.
따라
Monka has to have
잡으려면은
absolute
뭐 네임드
insane
붙인다거나
amount of
약간 그런
pulls
무리수
and
던져야
insane
되는데
execution of pulls for the rest of the dungeon to even
어제
have a chance
보니까
to defend
사제가
against
그러니까
this.
사제 힐량
It's crazy.
자체가
Monka on the back foot
저거
in the first 20
보스까지
minutes of the
붙었을
first
때
dungeon of the
보스가 아직
series.
팝업이 안 되지. 파괴도 안
It's
죽으면
crazy. Thunder looking
안
really strong.
메인 타겟 최대한 빨리 녹여주고 그 다음에 뭐 보스를
They are now
붙이거나
engaging the second boss here. Now, of course, they have a little bit less space because they skipped both of the dragons. That means that they are dragging the boss all the way to the right side here, and then they're going to be kiting backwards to where the boss originally spawned. But their rogue actually goes down here. Sorry, their feral goes down.
바데스가
Yes,
좀
you have
커
to use
보이네요.
the battle rest immediately to get them back up. And it looks like they might have recovered, but this is going to be a little bit of a time loss as the
사제의
incarnation
화법
is
쓰는
already being
거는
popped. So the cooldowns are already being
약간
used by their feral before
루비이기도 하고 루비의 강화 때문에 쓰는 이유가 있는 것 같아요.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but
강화 때문에 메인 타겟 녹이는
they
용도로
still have a
화법을
little bit of lead.
꺼낸 게 아닌가.
Monka definitely will take any and every nook and cranny to claw themselves back into this one, and that.
근데 썬더드 지금 사제 마나 너무 없거든요. 램드피 70%인데 마나를 안 쓰고 힐업이 되기는 하더라고요. 어제 보니까 그걸 감안해도 마나 거의 한 15% 정도 되는 것 같은데 저거는 너무 부담스럽지 않나?
Heavy loss for Thunder here as Monka already 5% ahead on the boss, doing a good job clawing themselves back into it. But remember, they can't just win by a little bit, they have to win by a lot. They have to win by over 15 seconds in order to take this dungeon home from this point onwards. And
썬더드 지금 변수가 네임드 피통 55% 남았는데 바닥이 조금 안 좋아요. 몽카는 무슨 일이 도대체 있길래 저거 램드피를 역전을 한 거지? 분명히 썬더드가 네임드 딜이 훨씬 빠른데 아니 조합이 똑같은데 도대체 무슨 차이가 나는 거야? 아이템 세팅이 다른가?
It's gonna be a little bit scary for them having to heal through all of these Inferno casts and through the tank damage.
아까부터 법사 딜이 좀 차이가 나긴 했었거든요.
Got the Nature's Vigil active right now, but it's not really healing anything. Everyone's already top. I guess it was for the previous Inferno.
썬더드 법사 뭐 불기둥발하라도
Next
쳤나?
one, it's going to be all bazooka, all personals just to stay alive. And Monka
요즘은 광에서도 불기둥발 안 치는 걸로 알고 있는데. 잠깐 사고 탱 터졌고 전면. 어우 썬더드. 제가 얘기를 했었는데 썬더드 바닥이 조금 안 좋았어요. 봉굴리는 위치가 너무 진행 방향 쪽에 한두 번 정도 굴러서 무슨 3경기는 개뿔 사고가 나도 몽카가 더 빠른데 몽카 어제 이거 나눠 갔거든요. 몽카 어제 이거 나눠 갔어요. 근데 지금 빡빡한 걸 아는 거죠 이제. 지금 이뎀에서 터진 건 모르는 것 같아요 몽카도.
But Moncana already on that last trash pool before they can do the last boss. Of course, still having that bloodlust available for the boss. They're gonna be saving it for that second phase of the last boss. And
몽카가 어제는 이걸 나눠 가서 좀 아쉽네요 뭐 그런 얘기를 했었는데. 그치 뭐 이렇게 할 수도 있는 팀이고. 근데 이것도 역시 라이바티 강화 잘못 먹으면 이건 전멸이에요. 강화 잘못 먹으면 전멸이야 이거. 강화 좀 한 번 더 있어요? 강화 많이 먹었어? 이 정도면 깔끔하게. 몽카 팀 어제 15분 45초라고 했었거든요.
all they need to do to finish off the rest of the dungeon here. Now, of course, the boss on its own right on 22 tyrannical key is not exactly the easiest thing in the world. These
아,
flame spit debuffs do a lot of
그러네.
damage here.
썬더도 보니까 야드가 쪼를 찍어치네요. 이러니까 네임드들이 차이가 나지.
Yeah, they should be fine for sure. It is still a high key level, so they have to watch out a little bit.
아마 몽카는 무딜로만 녹였을 거예요. 그러면은 얘기가 되네.
That boss, very unfortunate. But yeah, there we go. We do see them finishing off those warriors. Of course, bosses do not bolster anymore, so they don't have to worry about that at all. They can just passively cleave them down as they push the boss into second phase. Holding on to those cooldowns as well. You can see Incarn being available, Army also being held onto by RX, making sure they have all of that available with the Bloodlust, PI as well. And still a lot of defensives available by Skylark 2, plus 2 battle rasts in case something does go wrong.
Yeah, and of course they're going to try to milk this as much as possible just to do as much Karaka damage as they possibly can. There's a little bit.
1렘하고 2렘에서
I imagine the next time the dragon
네임드들 차이가
is when they'll lust here because you can actually get a bunch of free chip damage on the boss before he actually flies up. And there it is. The bloodlust has popped and we're off.
아무래도 폭군 주간이다 보니까, 그러니까 폭군 어픽스다 보니까 단일 쪽에 힘주는 특성이 좀 더 그 이유가 있었다.
Absolutely melt eventually. Hasn't really started melting yet. There we go. Now that everything's stacked up, we should see a ton of damage coming out. But this boss really isn't that low, Nagura. They're probably going to get at least 2 sets of debuffs here. This is going to be a little bit of a rough one for them to heal with. They should have plenty of cooldowns to deal with it.
I think so as well. PI and all offensive, of course, being used here. They might get one more set of debuffs. We'll see in just a second. But yeah, they have Nature's Vigil running. They have all of the defensives available. They also have one Dwarf Racial and Crims plus Ice Block. Plus Pain Step as well, so they should be alright.
오, 바닥.
The boss is going lower and lower, and there it is. Monka winning that first Ruby Life Pulse against Thundered, and how close it could have been.
아, 몽카 어제 15분 45초였는데 오늘은 사고가 났는데도 15분이죠. 확실히 마지막 그 막내 맙졸 그거 붙이고 안 붙이고 그 차이. 어제는 그냥 안전하게 갔던 게 맞다. 워낙 차이가 격차가 있는 팀이었으니까. 사고가 났는데도 그냥 뭐 가볍게. 썬더드가 램드 전멸이 없었어도 몽카가 이겼을 것 같네요, 이거는.
I was looking at the items and the talents that both teams had equipped, and the healers who were both on Disc Priest had a little bit different trinkets. So Mokmut was actually
아까
running Booker's Codex we have seen from
쫄 얘기는 이넴에서 쫄은 그 원딜 위치 중에 랜덤으로 팝업이 돼요. 원딜 중에 랜덤. 그래서 보통 이넴 패턴이 공 2번 굴리고 쫄라오고 공 2번 굴리고 쫄라오고 이런 식이거든요. 2번인가 3번인가 잠깐만. 훌링하고 쫄라오고 공 1번, 공 2번 쫄 맞네. 그러니까 공 2번 굴릴 때는 그 진행 방향 반대쪽으로 유도를 하고 쫄이 나올 때는 이제 원딜들이 진행 방향 쪽으로 좀 미리 가서 서 있어야 돼요.
And I think that's such a scary pull that I just need to call it out every single time. It's just there's so much that goes into this that sometimes you can't even fathom. You can see it here from the other side as well. There's so many interrupts. There's so much CC. The healer needs to pump. Everybody needs to keep.
구슬 유도를 하고 또 램드 유도, 그러니까 쫄 유도까지 해야 되니까 좀 귀찮죠. 힐러는 그 와중에 이제 힐도 다 해야 되니까 힐러가 좀 피곤해요. 이넴은 확실히. And then RX followed while the others were running up. Very smart, I think, to deny that battle rest here, knowing that you'll be back with the team in a little bit. But then on the side of Thunder, things took a turn south. Look at that roaring blaze. The interrupt just comes a half a second too late, kills that Pharaoh. Mask and Bazoo can barely live. They use their battle rest, and you think the worst is over. But right after that, well, a little bit after that, they had not much space left, and then baiting got a little bit messy, and it's something we have seen in the MDI before. These boulders, if you angle them towards the curb here, sometimes they catch on and they just explode the team. They had a full wipe and 몽카의 약간 항상 그래왔던 패턴이긴 한데 택틱은 예쁘게 잘 만들어오고
super
대회 때
good
실수
round
나와서
today. So I'm
무너지고.
very curious for that knockout that's coming up.
Yeah, and
Looking at that, yeah.
the other thing as well is that even though this was not the cleanest dungeon for Monka, it's still a whole 45 seconds faster than what we saw from them yesterday.
수사
Kind of
38K.
goes to show when you pull one of those mini boss mobs,
수사도 좀 뭔가 신기하긴 하다. 확실히 타겟 수가 많으면은 딜이 세지는 힐러인가? 수사도.
Even though there were deaths at the end of one of the pull, the fact that the tank and their DK were able to finish off those last two trash mobs and just kind of
진짜 진행이 거의 비슷했는데
in a spot where they could capitalize on the mistake from Thunder.
냄새에서 터진 게.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
even
you
that
can see it
curve
here.
is.
How even.
그러니까
Yeah,
딜이
they
진짜
are, Nagura. That's
미세하게 몽카가
impressive.
세네요.
Yeah, I mean that first pull they peaked at the same amount of DPS, and also I mean also it literally just looks like the same thing. Like they did the exact same pull, and then the same thing happens at 5 minutes again. That is pretty crazy to see. And then of course afterwards things changed with the wipes that we've seen, and also the
그래프가
differences we've
재밌다
seen in
이거.
pulls.
그러니까 이번 대회 때
But
처음
anyway,
나온 거
pretty
같은데
impressive to see that Thunder kept up with Monka, right, in DPS and also in the pulls that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a feat you can be proud of. Monka is one of the few teams in MDI history
어제는
that
보니까
was
막
able
그
to eke out wins
해설이
against
MDT도 막
Echo.
찍어주고
So
그러더라고요.
definitely the team to look out for. Cyro. But they have another match to go, and that is going to be the knockout. It is the first time we see it. Is there anything you think we can expect in terms of classes, or are we going to see kind of the thing that has become a little bit of standard with the Feral, the DK, and the Shadow Priest?
네, 그러니까 뭔가 11위 치고는 잘하는 것 같아요.
Probably.
I don't think we're gonna see anything different.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay.
I think the standard comp.
노쿠드.
Are we doing Prevoker or are we doing Shaman? Because we've seen both in Knockout before. Any takers on
that's
that?
an
one?
설마
interesting
노쿠드에서도
That's
화법에
what I'm not really sure about because we've seen both, and I think we've.
화법에
seen
수사
teams
쓰진
either
않겠지.
prefer one over the other.
폭탄
Teams that
주간은
like different
확실히
things.
용일이
I'm not really sure if
유리하거든요.
the teams know what's best
용일이
instead.
폭탄 깨는 스킬이 주변에 무딜이
Maybe it
들어가기
also has to
때문에
do with the- yeah, maybe it also has a little bit to do with the affixes as well. It is tyrannical.
폭탄 주간에는 약간 다른 힐러가 좀 따라갈 수가 없는? 그나마 이제 복술이 연번으로 폭탄을 깨면은 그나마 딜로스가 적긴 한데
So yeah, depends what the teams like more maybe.
화법은 강화라서 썼던 것 같아요. 루비에서만. 그러니까 강화에 피 맞추기 위한 용도? 그러니까 화법만큼 찍어치는 딜이 센 딜러가 없어서.
But I'm excited. I think mode's Resto Shaman is called Sad Mode or something. So maybe not too excited to play that one.
약간 자맹 2인분 정도 할 수 있는? 그러니까 특정 풀링에서.
Very much looking forward to both of these teams going in. We've seen both classes out of both healers, and I mean, maybe we see a rogue, something we've seen a lot in the time trials of the teams. I'm always open for a little bit of variety. Don't count me out here, but yeah, it definitely very scary dungeon that we're going to approach here. One of our two plus 23 dungeons. Knockout,
진짜 노쿠드는 특별한 게 없었어서.
There we go.
네, 그냥 그러니까 메이더 조합 양 팀 다 들고 나왔네요.
Yeah.
I guess that's not too surprising.
역시 용일이지. 폭탄은 용일이지.
We've seen some crazy things.
하나,
Some of our
둘.
weekends we've seen triple pulls, but both teams opting to go for a very typical double pull here. It makes sense considering we're on a 23, the highest key level
두
tournament.
팩이죠, 이거?
It is tyrannical, so these bosses are going to be very dangerous. But check this out: the time delay on Crims, just for any errant bleeds that might go out on him, just to keep him alive.
암사 딜이 좀 심상치 않은데?
Through those shoots as well, but this pack being dealt with so quickly and so cleanly for both teams. The damage from Crims is wild here, though. I wonder what differences in Shadow Priest builds there are that allow him to do that.
약간 다른 사제들하고 비교가 많이 되는데요? 크림스 딜이? 아까 얘 화법도 엄청 잘 치더니 크림스가 암사기에 약간 그런 애인가요?
Because of course you don't want to sit there hitting a single target mob for 30
올 스포일 듯?
so just dragging it forward. It also does look like Thunder was a
갑자기
little bit slower on
올라왔어요?
that first pull, as you mentioned. Mainly the difference looked like it was the Shadow Priest DPS, but we'll see if they
뭔가
actually do
쿨기
something
약간
about
맞추는
boss.
것
Sanguine, of course,
같은데
being a really big problem
이번 플릭
against
조금
Dungeon,
심심해요.
especially
이게
here
약간
on these first couple
글로벌
pulls,
플릭이긴 한데
because you have these archers that
뭐가
don't
있나?
move, they stand still, cast
그냥
shield
순회
constantly,
공연인가?
so that have to make sure they use their knocks and their
너무
grips
뭐가
properly.
없는데?
They have a lot of tools, right? They have all of the evoker knocks and the tail swipes. They have Mace Signs, Typhoon, Vortex in case they need it as well for the War Spear Bleed charge. And then on top of that, they of course also have the grips from the Unholy DKs. So
깃털이
they
계속
just need to
딜만
make sure
하면
they
딜이
use them
괜찮긴
properly
해요.
because some of these mobs cannot be displaced. So if you have a Lance
그리고
Master
폭군 주다
cast
보니까
inside the
깃털이
Sanguine
좀
pool,
더
that's gonna be
뭐
an issue. But
의미가
for
있겠죠?
Dread, having their Unholy DK die here.
It looked like he went down to one of those frontal cleaves. Just a straight one shot. He didn't get hit by anything else. So it's a little weird, but I do commit the battle res instead of having him release and fly back, which, you know, it is faster. Releasing and flying back would cost you about 15 minutes, 15 seconds.
뭔가 지금 1렘에다가
So,
로머 큰 무리를 그냥 한 방에 붙였는데 피운 관리만 잘 되면 괜찮긴 해요. 1렘 같은 경우는 사실 화살로 잡는 네임드긴 한데 MDI 같은 경우는 이런 식으로 좀 유의미하게 화살 한 번을 줄일 수 있다?
The other question I have about how we're going to deal with this boss on a 23 tyrannical. At what point do you start CCing these mobs? Do you CC them just
폭군이라 좀 폭군 23단이라 확실히 네임드들이 좀
Sure, so let's keep an eye on what they're doing.
우리가 알고 있는 데미지죠. 피가 팍팍 빠지는.
Didn't quite see actually. One monk
They have a lot of tools, right? They have the mind control from the Shadow Priest. I'm sure they went with the talent that makes the mind control be like a pet of yours, so you don't have to constantly channel the mind control.
폭군 23단이라
So that's probably
뭐
one
2렘이라든지
thing they're gonna do.
아니
Because
3렘이라든지 4렘 같은 데서 혹시나 생존기 분배 잘못하면은 사고 날 수 있어요.
And they also have roots from the druids. In fact, the druid can root one single root plus mass root. We actually see Thunder does have mass root on their feral druid that they can use, and then on top of that, they do also have some evokers to see that they can technically use as well. So we'll see what they're doing. But so
피
far, I
빠지는
haven't
거 좀
necessarily seen them
살벌하네.
use down any of them. At the start, when they were pulling the trash on top, it didn't look like it would have been a time loss to just AoE it down with the rest of the mobs. But now that the trash is going down slowly, they definitely want to make sure.
메이스틴 지금 타락 영향 때문에 피 빠지는 거 보이죠?
Lower their single target damage to kill them, and that is not something they want to do.
어우 진짜 라이브 서버에서 이번 주에 타락 영향 먹는 사람들은 혼나야 돼. 양심적으로 이번 주엔 타락 영향 먹지 마세요. 진짜 힐러하고 척을 지기 싫다면은.
Even though they pulled it roughly at the same time, the focus damage just being a little bit better from them, and also since they pulled the boss first.
글로벌에서 한 명 봤는데
Dragon Killer Lances, so
혼나
this boss
이번
will
주는.
go down first month, but by how much time? Looks like it'll probably be in the realm of, if I had to guess, about 15 seconds. So this first section of the dungeon going that.
아 하나 정배했었나요? 뭐 정배 굳이 뭐 이유를
This
찾자면은
next lance actually kills the boss for them, and the next one doesn't kill for Thunder. It could be a little bit of a longer damage increase for them.
한 마리를 더 달고 뭐 뒤틀린 운명 버프 유지용으로
So this next lance isn't going to kill the boss for Thunder. They're going to have to do a solid 3 or 4%.
아니면은 피웅 때문에 약간 죽기 전에 빼는 용도? 뭐 요 두 가지 정도로 볼 수 있겠네요. 뭐 몹이 죽기 전에 썼으면은 그냥 피웅 빼는 용도고 미리 풀피에 정배를 해놨으면은 한 마리라도 좀 오래 쓰기 위한. 어제 꽁스형 타락 그냥 먹었다고요? 이번 주에도 뭐 꽁스형 세게 돌지는 모르겠는데 먹으면은 바로 제가 저랑 돌게 된다면 바로 응징하겠습니다.
More trash on top of it. It looks like they added some storm shields plus maybe another pack on the side too. So lots of counts are gonna be happening here from Monka in just a second. But this pull very dangerous, especially with Sanguine. You saw some of the knocks coming out here, making sure none of these heal, especially the mini boss that cannot be knocked. Have to be very careful, but it does look like they focused it down using all of their funnel damage onto that mini boss.
아 근데 노프는 진짜 그게 없어요. 아 특별한 게 없다.
There we go. That was really well done by Monka.
야, 지금 첫 번째 플링도 그냥 아는 플링, 아는 맛. 어디 뭐 어떻게 못 붙이나 이거? 그러니까 토템 위치가 너보다 고정돼 있어가지고 3레막 구간에서 그나마 한 번 더 기대해야 되나? 모카님 안녕하세요. 그쵸. 확실히 노쿠드는 보는 맛이 없어요. 뭐 코뿔소는 나중에 붙일 수도 있죠.
This is so dangerous though because these arc blades they do so much tank damage if those tank attacks actually go through those arcing strikes. So Alex has to be very careful now. Having Basook actually goes down for Thundered. They do have no banners available.
보박줄 법사 없으니까 크게 의미가
all
없지.
the way back. That means Alex has to survive here without a healer and only one shield wall charge left.
근데 저 보막줄은 램드의 자원으로 쓰면은 많이 유리하긴 한데 굳이 그렇게까지 안 하네요. 코뿔소 붙이네요. 근데 이 코뿔소는 로버 코뿔소가 아니고 요 토템 팝업 위치에 있는 그냥 있는 코뿔소거든요. 안 잡아도 되는. 그냥 옆에 있으니까 뭐 같이 잡자 이런 느낌인 것 같아요. 벽 한 마리 잡으면은 나중에 그 퍼센트 조절하는데 도움이 되기는 해요. 그쵸. 폭탄은 힐러가 그냥 다 깨는 게 맞아요. 그리고 쫄 어픽스가 나쁘지 않잖아요. 그냥 폭탄에 피움밖에 없어서 기본적으로 피가 빠질 게 없어요. 이러면은 그냥 힐러가 무난하게 쳐줄 수 있죠.
It's just so unfortunate. Of course, losing a player here and there is going to cause everyone else
대신 짤이 세면 안 되겠죠.
maybe deviate from their plan.
약간 그런 거예요. 폭탄 내가 다 깨줄 수 있어. 대신에 니네 피 빠지지 마. 니네 피만 안 빠지면 폭탄 내가 다 쳐줄 수 있어. 이런 느낌?
But it looks like they have recovered now. They can make sure they're moving on from here. But of course, they're out of battle rests at this point for another 2 minutes.
몽카 피움 관리 진짜 잘하네요. 저기 힐링던 나오고 있는데 한 번도 피움을 못 본 것 같은데. 그리고 여기 노쿠드 이넴 젤리아는 여기서 60k 가까이 뽑았거든요.
But of course, that raging tempest, that storm, lightning storm can do a lot of damage to your group. We'll see how they deal with the stacks as well, because we've noticed that these teams are trying to extend their stacks as much as they can, trying to keep those 10 stacks on the damage dealers.
지금 모아드가 제가 말한 그 정지적 콤보를 정확하게 써줬어요. 나는 저렇게 쓰는 게 제일 좋다고. 영혼만개 1스택 꼼숨 그 다음에 시간 변치. 마음에 들었어요 방금.
Yeah, let's see actually if any of the DPS players for Monka are able to keep their stacks as well. Let's see, Crims, Maystine, RX, do they get the extend? Maystine gets his, Crims gets his, RX gets his, all three of their DPS players got their buff extend.
지금 딜러 3명은 구슬 중첩을 이어갔고 모아드는 중첩이 좀 끊겼네.
This boss looks like it's going down very slowly here, but look at the cooldowns coming up across the board. We've got Army of the Dead coming up in 10 seconds. Well, they just used Power Infusion, so that's not going to be up. But I imagine the Lust will be used here when it comes
이게
up, unless they
조금
really want to save it for something
포인트가 있네요. 그러니까 저게 낙뢰였나? 낙뢰 힐을 따로 힐을 하지 않고 그냥 저때 불숨을 맞추고 있어요 보니까.
Bloodlust with 10 stacks on all of their players. I imagine the Raging Tempest is not long for this world for Monka.
Yeah, I do think
낙뢰를 따로 안 하네.
All of their coolers, of course, being popped. Unfortunately, as you said, no PI available here in combination with the army. They're still just going to do so much boss damage as the boss is melting. Thundered on the other side now also managed to engage the boss too, but of course a little bit behind because of all of the issues they had on this.
보면은 모아드가 따로 힐을 안 하고 근데 이거 지팡이 중첩 없을 때 쓴 건 조금 아쉽다. 야드가 단일이 센 이유는 구슬 중첩 유지를 되게 잘했어요. 근데 이번에 끊겼네.
While Monka had They actually had zero
램드
stacks
킬
on them, so
타이밍이라
no.
힐러가 구슬
So
양보를
they're
하죠.
really
이거는.
focusing some of these stacks on their healer to make sure they can survive.
Vote had like 1 or 2 stacks just from accidentally, just from soaking them to make sure they didn't hit the boss, but he wasn't actively soaking them. The stacks dropped off before the first lightning storm. So yeah, you're right. Like they were really focusing
민풍
on making
만개
sure damage
그
was as
풀스택
high
꿈순
as
1스택
possible.
그거랑
The damage was for the boss.
되돌리기
They're all
들어갔어요.
DPS
두 번째.
well over 100.
되돌리기 들어간 걸 못
Mo
보셨구만.
doing 50k on his own. Skylark 75k. Those numbers are absolutely nuts, and they are easily moving on to this third section of the dungeon here with
근데 폭군 23단이니까
over Thundered here. The gap has opened significantly here. And it's not like anything too crazily wrong has happened for Thundered, right? They've had a couple spot deaths here or there, which happen, but I think the big outlier is that Sanguine healing. The management for Monka has been almost pristine. We haven't really seen it pop up on the damage meters at all for them. But for Thundered, it has been very present on a couple of those pulls, especially.
방금 모아드 이넴딜 한 40k 때 나왔는데
You know, the trash, the arc blade,
세긴 세네요.
and it's just setting them so far behind.
Yeah, I would also say that Sanguine management was the major difference between the teams so far. As Monka
야,
is now
지팡이
in another
감안해도
area where Sanguine can be difficult.
아, 난
though.
절대 저딜 안
Monka does
나오던데
have to
진짜.
look out for Sanguine again on this area. Plus, we haven't really talked about explosive yet. But explosive is also a pretty dangerous affix in no crit specifically because you're doing all of these big pulls back to back, especially in that first area that we have seen already. Plus this third boss trash pulls. You can see there's
오늘 플레이를 좀 보고 느끼는 게 이게 불숨을 그냥 오프닝에 바로 뿌리는 것보다 그냥 힐 타이밍에 살짝 맞추는 연습이 되면 좋을 것 같아요. 불숨을 방역 힐업 용도로 되게 잘 쓰네 보니까.
make sure none of these Sanguine pools are healing any of the mobs, and you can see Sanguine not even showing up on the healing meter at all. Perfectly executed by Monka.
And again, you know, Sanguine is going to be featured heavily in this dungeon in terms of like what we think is going wrong, especially when you pull this many mobs together, because there are so many casters in these groups, right? You have a misallocated kick somewhere, somebody decides to kick something they don't normally kick, and then you have
아, 저 이네미터기 전물이랑 이어졌어요?
right? You have very specific amounts of tools to deal with that Sanguine affix, and you cannot do anything extra, otherwise you just fall so far behind. But as Monka deals with a second pull here, check out this first pull from Thundered here, going for a
아니, 코드
massive
됐었나,
double
그럼?
pull, also
그러면은
pulling
이해가
control
되지.
in as well. And this could go really, really well, or it could set them even further behind. Let's see how this plays out for them. Maybe getting clipped by one of the frontals there, dropping him incredibly low. Zook doing everything he can to keep him alive.
교감은 그냥
The setup is pretty good.
미세하게
Got it
빠진
pretty
피를
well
복구하거나 그냥 마다 채우는 용도로 던질
set.
수도
Has
있어요.
gone off, though. This could be scary. There's the Shatter Soul.
교감이 마다가
Getting their
20%가
close as
차거든요.
quickly as possible. A knockback to make sure things don't get Sanguine healing, but that has spread the pull out so far.
아니면 뭐 단순하게
AoE damage
한축이 잘못 눌렀을 수도 있고. 제가 신기할 때 되게 자주 그러던데 실수로 날개 누를 때 있거든요. 둘 중에 하나예요. 마나탐 아니면은 실수.
Much they have to deal with these affixes, right? They have to knock everything apart. There's these deaf speakers that just stand still for it feels like an hour and just channel this cast that he can't really stop. So they're just so spread out that it just really takes them so long to finish off the pool at the very end. At the start, they managed to gather up everything, but then at the end, because of Sanguine, it just cost them so much time to actually finish it off.
그쵸? 이게 교감이 꿀 구간에서는 생각보다 그렇게 쓸 일이 별로 없어요. 이번 주 같은 경우는 이제 파열 힐업 용도로 많이 쓰는데
They are going to be about to engage the boss as well in just a second, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pull this last couple of trash packs into the boss.
저는 교감은 조금 애매하고 되돌리기 같은 경우는 저도 쫄 구간에 많이 쓰거든요. 그냥 힐 하기 귀찮을 때 그냥 되돌리기로 힐 때우고 그냥 딜하고 싶을 때 뭐 그런 식으로 많이 쓰기는 해요.
Let's see. It looks like they are pulling this beast collar in, even committing the Medic Grief Torch to getting as much damage on it as possible. If they do drop the Sanguine Puddle in this room, we have to keep an eye on the leaps from the boss here. And actually, the timing might work out really well for here. If they just kill the beast collar right here, it's going to leap away and they won't have to worry about that Sanguine Pool. Let's see, do they just focus it down just to get the Sanguine Pool down? Looks like they do. Okay, so the beast collar's dead. I think it's in a spot that won't get leapt to, so that's good management from Monka there. And here we go.
얘네도 한 점 하네요 이거.
Let's see how much damage does the Gale Arrow do on the 23 Tyrannica. Look at the HP bars. It was quite a bit, but it looks like they used a pretty significant amount of cooldowns.
그러니까 노쿠드가 그러니까 뭐라 그래야 돼? 약간 섹션별 진행이라서 볼 건 없는데 그냥 빠르네요. 그냥 빨라.
Easily 100 to 0 somebody over the course of a couple seconds.
Yeah, definitely can. You do have to make sure you use all of your, or you rotate your defensives for those Gale arrows. Otherwise,
폭군 23단인 거 감안하면은 진짜 말도 안 되게 빠르긴 해요 지금. 원래 보통 글로벌에서 램드 잡는데도 한 세월인데.
Yeah, just a little bit behind, unfortunately. All of their pulls look really good. Like all of their pulls seem very competitive, similar size to Monka. Some
프린스가 단일 비중 특성이 큰데 광에서도 셌었죠 계속. 그러니까 처플린 같은 경우에 광도 엄청 셌던 것 같은데.
And it's just costing them so much time, unfortunately. Monka, on the other hand, is now 50% on the boss, and it's not going to be an issue for them at all to finish this off. They are missing 6% on the enemy forces, and very likely that's going to be trash they're going to be making up on the last boss.
프린스가 암사를 좀 많이 잘하네요. 암사 같은 경우도 좀 연구가 많이 들어가는 클래스잖아요. 하루 이틀 한다고 잘할 수 있는 그런 클래스가 아니라서. 뭔가 좀 짬바가 느껴지는.
Thunder looked like they have essentially the exact same. Is it 5%?
Maybe it's a bit, maybe it's a bit more. I'm not sure.
Okay, this is gonna sound
I also only know the count.
Count.
It's difficult.
And the dungeon is 520
You do the math.
count. Hold on. Calculator 32 divided by 520. 6.1%. Okay, so yeah, it is a little. It's a little over 6% actually. Interesting. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, they could do either the mini boss or the trash count. It doesn't matter. They're so far ahead that they could probably pull the trash by itself and not have to worry about pulling into the boss. But I seriously doubt that is the strategy that Monka will go for. This team is amongst the best. They'll go for the fastest strategy just to try to put that time up on the board and give themselves that confidence going into tomorrow after they take this series. Third boss is going down for them, and like we said, like we've been saying, only thing between them and a 2-0 victory in this quarterfinal match is that final boss area. So let's see how they deal with it. Thunder on their side.
몽카는 이제 그 5.8% 남았으니까 막내매 중보 두 마리 붙여서 그렇게 진행할 것 같아요.
It's gone wrong for them on this boss while we were talking about that count shenanigans. But they're doing a good job.
막내매 중보 두 마리 붙이는 건 폭군 때는 진짜 어려운 플링이 아니라서.
But yeah, Monka just looks like they're that tiny bit better in this dungeon.
Yeah, they also look like they're having some mana issues under Evoker here for Thunder. Now, Evokers, of course, with the disintegrate and getting mana back.
막내매, 그러니까 노쿠도 막내매선 용일이 이 타이밍에 정지장에 소작 하나를 저장하고 가면 좋아요. 이 타이밍에 정지장 소작 하나를 저장하면은 처음에 탱커가 출혈이 바로 걸리잖아요. 이거 출혈 해제를 해주고 그러면 정지장에 소작이 2번 저장이 되죠. 탱커한테 2번이게. 그 다음에 뭐 힐스킬 하나 써놓고 그 다음 타임에 정지장을 돌리면서 소작 해제를 하면, 그러니까 출혈 해제를 하면은 소작풀이 다시 와 있어요. 그래갖고 그 소작은 램드 사이패 진입 전에 돌려주면 좋아요.
Plus, there's a lot of damage on the tank. The bleed being stacked on the mini bosses, plus the extra tank attack from the boss itself. Whenever spell reflect.
저게 탱커 출혈 데미지가 상당해서.
And then on top of that, you have these mini bosses charging around, throwing spears around, plus the boss throwing a spear as well. So it can be a little bit tricky.
사이패 탱커가 출혈을 달고 있으면은 사이패 힐할 때 조금
I'm not sure.
부담이 되거든요.
Them, or if they're just really just completely passively cleaving them, but it looks like they are dying decently fast.
It looks like they were just full cleaving for the entire first part of the boss here, and now that they've got it very close to the intermission boss HP, they're just going to finish off the 2 mobs and drop.
그런 식으로 써먹을 수 있는 네임드가 노쿠드 막내마고 크로스, 알게타르 대학 크로스.
want Achilles off in the corner where the Sanguine won't be an issue, and there you go. Both mini bosses dead, 100% count as we go into the intermission phase for Monka here. They do have that third Bloodlust available. I don't think they'll be using it on the intermission itself. They'll probably save it afterwards for pure boss damage to get it dead as quickly as possible. But it definitely could be a play for teams to just say, you know what, we want to be as safe as possible and pop the Bloodlust. Because look at the damage on the team when you get to this intermission phase. Just the passive AoE storm damage that comes out during this intermission is so incredibly high. They've got the tools to deal with it. The Vampiric Embrace, the Nature's Vigil, even a couple cooldowns being committed just to kill that trash there.
여기 용일 힐업은 쪼를 매지하기 때문이지 않을까요? 진짜 글로벌에서 쪼를 매지한다고 할 때마다 엄청 때려주고 싶은데 쫄 매지 안 하고 그냥 빠르게 녹여주면은 그렇게 안 빡세요. 쫄 매지한다고 늘어지면은 그거는 힐하기 힘들죠 이제.
Plus, of course, the spell reflect damage on the prod warrior doing so much damage on Belakar Khan, so that's going to be incredibly valuable as well. They do not have any Shadow Melts available anymore on their side. Actually, we do see one Shadow Melt being available on our X. So if the spear goes on him, they can get rid of that as well. They did use both of them in phase 1, so really good value on those ratios too. But look how
저
fast
타이밍에 뭐 정지장 되돌리기 꼼숨 다 들어갈 텐데 그거 안에 잡아줘야지 쪼를. 그거 3개 쓰면서 살릴 수 있는 시간이 그래도 한 25초 30초 정도 될 텐데.
Perfect RNG from Monka here as Belakar Khan goes down with a pretty quick time, 22-27. But 0 deaths, minimal Sanguine healing. I cannot actually wait to see the damage meters. I want to see what the overall Sanguine healing was. But I digress. 2-0 victory for Monka, moving themselves into the upper finals for tomorrow. Just
이거는 그냥 뭐지? 양팀 플링이 똑같았는데 그냥 몽카가 너무 그냥 체급이
truly showing what Monka as a team is capable of. Before we go into the replays, I have something that I thought was very interesting.
몽카는 내일 봐야겠네요. 내일 암사를 딱 비교를 해주네요. 바로.
Deciding to play a little bit different builds here. On Crimsite we have Dark Ascension.
저는 뭐 암사 안 해서 봐도 모르겠지만.
And both of these come with different idols, so it's overall a little bit of a different build in the Shadow Priest tree. This translates to how they're pulling, which is why I'm bringing it up. In the very first pull in that knockcut, you could see exactly why Crims chose to play that build. It's a lot more bursty, it's a lot more suited for shorter pulls, and then that allows you to have that 700k we saw in the very first pull in these spikes. And then on the other side, the build
모든 몹에 같은 옛날 암사인가? 그 흡손 고통 그런 식으로 딜하는 모든 쫄에.
Let's get into it. We have the first boss. Something we saw from both teams is great ad control here. You don't want to.
옛날 암사는 조금 알아요. 옛날엔 잠깐 약간 건드려봤어가지고. 리븐 암사라고 해야 되나? 암사 했던 건 리븐 때라서.
Making sure everything is rooted in place, even chains of ice coming out in one place here. So really cool to see that. But then things went a little bit south for Thundered, and I heard you guys mention it as well. It was a little bit of an affix diff, I feel like. Sanguine Ichor really gave them so much trouble when they moved on to the Tempest area. Like, you can see all the puddles here, you can see it in the meters, that's 4 million they needed to do more. I'm sure we're going to see it in the overall comparison later on. And then this next pull is actually really crazy from Thundered, and it cost their healer his life as well.
전전 끝나고 미터기에서 볼 거는 피웅 힐량 한번 보시면은 제가 봤을 때 썬더드 화면을 거의 안 봐서 모르겠는데 피웅에서 좀 많이 차이가 나지 않았을까 싶네요.
And then use that into that bloodlust that came ready during the fight. And Mode was the one that wasn't really stacking them up, which is a little bit contrary to what we've seen in the past. And I thought that was really cool to see them prioritize the DPS just taking these buffs here. And then this was where I thought, okay, maybe Thundered can take it back. It was a pretty big pull, 2 pulls together into one. But because these Ahuna are not really great at moving around, It
아쉬운
felt
거는
like it took too
오늘도
long,
역시
but here you can see the shadow
그러니까
priest
몽카가 뭐
shine again.
특별히
It
스페셜한 걸
was a
보여준 건
battle royale.
아니라서
Maskin was able to do a lot of
그러니까
damage
맵이
with the
너무
build that
보여줄
he
게
had
없는
chosen,
맵이었어요.
and then Monka in the end taking Batak and Balara into Balaka Khan, making sure they finish up the percentage, just passively cleaving them off right before they hit the face. I thought
그래도
it was
내일은
very, very lovely and a great time overall from
본선
Monka.
결승에서 이제 5경기 그러니까 5판
See
3선이니까
overall, let's have a look at Sanguine Iker.
Wow.
And if you're
수용
looking at
790만,
Monka, 7.9
2200만.
million gyro against
수용 차이가 많이
22
나죠.
million.
Like nearly a third
790만이면 뭐
of the
그냥 메인
heroes.
타겟은 거의 안 들어갔다고
I mean,
되는
that is almost
안
the entire
들어갔다고 볼
defense
수 있는
right there.
수준이라.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Look how
I
much
mean,
damage
수용
Trinket
차이
did,
플러스
actually.
암사
I
차이
just wanted to say,
he is
his
still
note
running that
is
trinket.
explosive.
181만 대
Okay, it's
167만.
explosive, which means that healers
근데
on big pools,
이
I mean, all the
181만이
healers,
단일
global
특성이라는
and
거?
explosive, global and explosive, all these Asher
이게
strikes coming out of
180
the Evoker, still being able to do
그러니까
51k
단순하게
already. Yes, that
147K,
is really
131K 요 차이가 있는 게 아니고
Yeah.
단일 특성을 찍었는데도 16K가 더 세다는 거예요, 이거는.
Oh, that would just be
그게 다른
zero,
딜러들도
zero,
딜 차이가
zero,
미세하게 좀 나고.
150,
Would
zero.
love that. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that also comes down to his trinket
힐러
choice.
딜도 차이가 좀
Mahmoud
있고.
once again going
그냥
with the Invoker
한
codex,
명
having that
개개인이
single
몽카가 더
target on
잘했는데
demand,
특히
rather
암사는
than just
좀
trying to
많이 잘했다.
passively deal DPS is a really smart choice when you have something like explosive, I think. But yeah, you can see overall the routing looked pretty similar. A little bit of a higher spike in that first wall.
커플링의 이
I
차이가
wanted to
딱
go ahead and ask
암사만큼
you
차이
that
나는
difference,
거잖아요.
just blasting that first wall. I was really excited to see Shadow Priest up there. But yeah,
특성이 단일 특성이라고 하니까 신기하긴 하네요. 단일 특성으로 저렇게 광딸 치는 게.
That spike around 12 minutes for Monka and 14 minutes for Thunder. They were just about 2 minutes behind at that point in the dungeon from Sanguine Management and spot deaths.
아 이게 로그 사이트
A
그래프구나.
very, very clean dungeon for Monka. It was wild how easily they were able to pull off at 23 with no mistakes.
로그가 참 대단하긴 해.
yeah, I mean, 22 minutes 27 was their overall time, which I think is really fast for a 23 tyrannical. That just has to be something to respect out of the other teams that are in this cup. Now, coming up, we do have something we're very excited about. After that 2-0, of course, that means Monka is going to move on into the upper semifinals, and Thunder has to fight in the lower bracket. But I kind of feel like for an 11th seed, they did exceptionally
몽카는
well.
이제 그
yes,
준결승
healing was a lot, but Nagura,
진출을
I don't
확정
think we
지었고
expected that much from an 11th seed, right? Keeping up with Monka for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, 11th seed is good.
이제 다음 경기에 나오는 치즈 경기력을 좀 기대해봐야겠네요. 치즈가 어제 경기가 없었어서 그러니까 부전승이라고 해야 되나? 상대팀이 노쇼였대요. 어제 경기를 안 하는 바람에 이번 중계에 처음 등장하는데 치즈가 좀 잘해줘야 이제 내일 첫 경기와 내일 마지막 경기를 좀 기대를 하면서 이제 볼 수 있기 때문에 좀 잘했으면 좋겠네요. 이게 치즈가 세야지 몽카도 좀 센 택틱을 들고 나올 거예요.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be right back with that. Don't go anywhere. We'll go into a short break. And then we have cheese against Thunder.
몽카 이제 첫날 같은 경우는 그 아까 루비에서도 루비 막내 막졸 붙어잡는 거 안 하다가 오늘은 했거든요. 그러니까 격차가 별로 안 나니까. 그런 식으로 이제 상대팀에 따라서 또 택틱이 달라지는 MDI이기 때문에 개인적으로 치즈가 많이 잘했으면 좋겠네요. 그리고 썬더스트럭도 어제 좀 상당히 잘했거든요. 썬더드는 루비가 좀 아쉽겠네요.
Welcome back to day 2 of the MDI. We have got an exciting one for you in this one. We have the cheese.
확실히 그 첫째 날이나 그 셋째 날은 중계진이 4명씩 나오거든요. 오늘 좀 길어서 그런지 3분씩 로테로 돌아가는.
Who do you think's going to come out on top?
I think chat's probably already spamming that stinky cheese emote, so I think that
두 번째 경기 첫 던전이 알게타르 대학인데 알게타르 대학에서 그동안 뭐
this one should be cheese favored.
도적의 속거로 갖다 붙이는 그런 걸 많이 보여줬었는데 어픽스가 강화예요. 강화 때 그 독수 그 셋 쪽에 쫄 붙이는 게 좀 부담스럽거든요. 셋 쪽에 그 새끼 독수 새끼 새들이라고 해야 되나? 걔네들이 강화를 다 먹기 때문에
to capitalize and be like, oh, you know, this worked well and this didn't work as well, and we can maybe save a little bit more time. We saw that from Thunder coming into that Ruby Life pool. So
네, 치즈는 어제 부전승한 팀. 근데 이게 예선전 5위로 통과한 팀이라서 뭔가 좀 잘할 것 같은 팀이거든요. 프레그넌스가 있다고 하던데요, 보니까.
What were your general thoughts on that Algothor Academy, as it is going to be like the first map in the series?
아, 제이가 닥터제이 맞구나. 썬더스트럭엔 닥터제이, 르마이크, 요다. 썬더스트럭이 멤버가 좀 아는 맛. 어제 그 죽게 하던 제이가 아, 닥터제이 맞나? 막 그랬었는데 닥터제이 맞네요.
cross-region team with the MDI veterans from several winning teams in the past. They're up against Cheese, though, who are a higher-seeded team. And Cheese includes some people that you may recognize, such as Frag from Echo, previously played on the Echo team.
여기도 프레그넌스. 얘도 본 적 있는 것 같은데. 그래놨고.
Some very powerful players.
리키도 방송하는 거 몇 번 본 것 같은데.
Very much one of the favorites to come out of this group.
Do you think there was ever a chance that Thunderstruck? Sorry.
되게 양팀 다 그 인지도가 있는 그런 멤버들이네요, 보니까.
But they played Havoc Demon Hunter in every single run.
닥터제이는 항상 MDI에서 그렇게 성과를 낸 적은 없었어가지고.
I love that class. I play it myself, but it's not the strongest MDI type style of class. So I think they have a lot more potential going into this, but we're seeing
뭔가 약간 상위 팀들의 어둠달? 이런 건 오히려 좀 기대가 돼요. 정화라서 그 3렘도 그렇게 지루하진 않을 거고. 결국 안 보여주는 건 조금 아쉽지만.
We see that sometimes, right, where teams will hide strats, but typically they don't hide strats over the course of like the whole entire weekend. They'll hide strats, try to save them between weekends and stuff.
일단 네임 밸류만 봤을 때는 양 팀 다 좀 체급이 있어 보이거든요.
First map of the weekend or something like that, not go as hard as possible because you know you're against like the 17th.
체급 체크하기 좋은 던전이 루비인데.
I think so.
이거는 개인적으로 루비까지 좀 갔으면 좋겠네요. 루비 가면은 혹시 닥터제이가 부죽 대신 화법은 좀 그렇네. 닥터제이 하면 또 화법 보고 싶긴 하거든요. 혹시 멤버 중에 다른 멤버가 또 부죽을 수합하고 닥터제이가 화법을 한다면?
So, like, looking at the bracket, right? Thunderstruck must have figured out that they can't avoid that Algothor Academy, and that their most likely opponent was going to be Cheese, a team that they expect to be really good. Now, if they figured that out and they were like, okay, let's not do all the crazy strats, let's do our normal route, but take it just like a little bit slower to not leak everything, I think that is within the realms of possibility.
Yeah, you would be developing like a, I guess if there's something that's like dangerous but faster, you maybe don't do it on day 1 and you maybe break it out on day 2, but I don't know. I think when you're like saving a strat, you know, you'd be
어둠달 어픽스가 조금 무섭긴 하네요. 분노.
I think usually when you see teams do that, it's like, oh, we're gonna save our strat on day 1 and then save it all the way until day 3, right? And get a lot of value out of it when that map shows up here. Whereas this time, I don't think you do it unless it will. I think the
1렘에서 계속 터지는 탱커 한 명 있었는데
You know, let's just not do some of our craziest pulls.
A조
because we don't
A조
wanna
때였나
risk
B조 때였나
wiping on them, and maybe we'll get to see them bust out something new here. Although, I mean, it's bolstering really.
디바인
there's really a couple
필드였나?
of spots in this dungeon you could even potentially.
어둠달 1렘에서 2번 연속
I mean,
터진
just looking
탱커.
at the rest of the maps in the series too, I think that if this goes to a 3-map series for whatever reason, I do think that Thunderstruck may have the advantage in Ruby life pools. They have multiple mage players on their team, and that seems like a dungeon that mage is very, very good at. And so with the ability to be able to play mage at such a high level inside of some of your dungeons, I think that could give Thunderstruck the advantage. Now it's more of a question is Cheese the higher seed?
중계진들 말이 좀 길어지고 있는 거 보니까 지금 그 경기 준비하는데 시간이 좀 걸리는 것 같아요.
But I think that like if it does go to a 3-game series, Thunderstruck and Ruby life pools, I think it's a good setup for them.
She's just a team that we have no idea how fast they are this weekend as well, right? We didn't see them play yesterday, so it's going to be a big question mark. Are they going to use that Havoc Demon Hunter that Fragments used for all of their time trial runs as well?
I don't believe that.
I mean, teams have been using Havoc Demon. Multiple teams have used Havoc Demon Hunter. It's if it's bad, it's not bad by much, and it was good enough to get them the 5th seed in the time trials, right? That's got to count for something. I don't know.
Do you think that was a Fem gap then?
Just
Maybe.
looking at what
첫날
Thunderstruck played
대학은
yesterday. I
그러니까
mean,
본버즈랑
honestly,
썬더드가
kind of
경기를
expect a
했었는데
rogue going into
양팀 다
the
되게
outside
안전하게
academy
갔거든요.
to do
그러니까
all of
뭐
the
순위가
snapping,
11위,
right?
14위 팀이기도
And
했고
you need
Yeah.
Vanish
근데
kind of
오늘은
to make
5위
sure
대
that
8위
snapping
팀이니까
works. So we should see at least
조금
one
기대가 되네요.
rogue, right? Now, we probably also see a DK,
약간
because I think
좀
most teams have
풀링하다
been running a
터지더라도
DK. Like even the teams
과감한
that
풀링들을
play
많이
with
보여주면
Havoc Demon
좋겠어요.
Hunter, they run a DK. So
여태까지
the
C조
question
경기에
is what
나왔던
is
그
going to be the
맵들이
third
전부 다
DK
좀
to me.
Havoc Demon.
Yeah. Well,
보는 맛이 없었던
you could
던전들이라서
have Fragments play the DK, or you could have Ricky play the DK and then Fragments on DH or something. But I don't know. Maybe you put Ricky on like a Shadow Priest or something, or a Feral Druid.
Yeah.
Although,
He's
Feral?
been like Spriest Rogue, right? That's been what he's been on a lot.
yeah.
I
and
mean,
then
I'm
you could
so
have Janako
excited
play
for
Feral.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm also very curious to see what the teams play. I wonder if this is a place where you could play Magician as well. I mean, we know that Thunderstruck. I don't think
We're
did that
getting
in their
baited
last
right
attempt,
now.
but maybe.
Production is
mean,
saying the talent doesn't know. They'll never guess the comp. Now
Well,
I'm
Janako
even
loves
more
Warlock. Okay, hold on.
enticed.
So hear me out. Dranaka loves Warlock main.
Oh,
Do we
it's an
think-
affliction dungeon. It's an affliction dungeon. You play
Okay.
the dot spec. You could.
이번 C조에서
It's not very
처음
good on
모습을
bolstering.
보이는
That's-
치즈.
The
Yeah,
problem
wait
is
a second.
it's not very good on bolstering. Is the but you could.
첫날 경기에서
This
나쁘지
is
않은
where you
모습을
play
보여줬던
affliction in that
썬더스트럭.
dungeon.
I don't know if it's AF, but I mean like if you think
Yeah,
about
probably Destro if they're
22
playing it.
Yeah, 22-4. I could see Destro in here, but I don't know. I think that
B조에서
compositions aren't,
퍼플렉스드랑
super static in this dungeon.
다이얼부즈
But I do think
포지션이거든요, 지금 양
they take
팀이.
pretty much
근데
every single composition.
그러니까 B조에서 다이얼부즈랑 퍼플렉스드보다 격차가 훨씬 더 적어요, 이 두 팀은.
Yeah. Is it bad?
I think we're gonna see when we see it, and I
다이얼부즈 응원하셨던 분들이 많았던 걸로 기억을 하는데.
Sure if I want the Demon Hunter to be there. I'm happy to be proven wrong, though. Of course, Thunderstruck, we are expecting them to play the same thing they did yesterday, right? Or is anyone thinking they'll change something?
제가 지난 시즌까진 딜러를 좀
Right?
했었는데 이번 시즌은 안
I
키웠어요.
think it'll be the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if anything,
아마 진기 상향되면 진기 조금 건드려 볼 것 같고. 지금 도적을 하고 있긴 한데 도적이 좀 내가 원하는 만큼 딜이 안 나오네요. 화음 나왔고
Okay, wait, we were getting there.
왜 웃는지는 모르겠네. 화학의 악사? 화학의 악사 암사?
Shadow Priest for cheese versus Thunderstruck's very standard composition of an Holy Death Knight Rogue Feral Druid. And let's see what's going on. in the
도적이
Empire
없어서?
Academy. Holy moly!
I mean-
what is this?
고욱이에요?
It's an academy. We came here to learn something, I think, and that's something we're going to get done. I'm
오.
just very curious if there's going to be any snapping on the side of Cheese, and if yes, how they're going to.
지금 썬더스트럭 용일
Now
뭔가
we saw
색다른
both
무빙
teams
루트.
do a little bit of skippity skip and into that big pull here which
다 툼을 먹었는데 용일 혼자 툼을 안 먹었지.
They're going to go for that triple pull, and that's one that has cost teams the entire key. Now it is fortified bolstering.
알게타르 대학은
so they
도적이
can
굉장히
literally
유리한
have
던졌는데
even damage
도적이
on
없네요.
everything.
치즈 조합이 그냥
This is one of the big advantages of that Destro Warlock. You have the Infernal, you have the Blasphemy Stuns, you have the Shadow Fury. On top of that, you see
악사가 이런 빅풀에 좋은 건 뭐 다들 아는 사실이고
make sure that those stuns came down perfectly, and that
도흑이
attack
암사?
gets obliterated. And that Unruly textbook, they banished it for a second as well to make sure
그러니까 약간 자생은
because they saw it was a little
좋던
bit
말도 그렇게 크게 상관이 없어요. 어차피 살릴 수 있는 단수라서 그냥 딜이 세야 되는데
Of course, they wouldn't have blasphemy.
That's okay. I get a little bit flustered when teams pull this.
일단 치즈 풀링이 좋아요.
Af is actually insane for
퍼플링 끝나고 바로 붙여서
one of the
네임드.
big advantages of affliction. In addition to that, like their funnel damage, it can be very high as well. I'm surprised that we're not
고양이
seeing
두
Rogue,
번이야.
I guess on the side of cheese, that's a bit more
Yeah.
concerning mix, especially for like snapping with how popular snapping has been here. I wonder if like the
고양이 두 번인데 그 용일 공통 특 그러니까 용 공통 특성에 그 이동기를 초기화시키는 특성이 하나 있어요. 그거 쓰고 세 번 쓴 것 같아요. 이 특성 이름이 기억이 안 나네.
But rather going for like a heavy momentum build, which I think is very interesting. Most of the demon hunters we have seen so far would rather
네,
opt
이동기
into
리셋 특성.
either Fodder to the Flame or Legion Decree.
네, 와류 맞아 와류.
That here as well. And if you have
저도
been
그
paying
찍어본
attention
적이
to
없어갖고
details
특성 이름을 잘
about
몰랐어요.
that demon hunter has been blasting that first pack as well, so really cool to see that come out here. But of course, Thunderstruck is also on Vaximus and actually leading just a little bit. They're still finishing off some of the trash here while
근데 네임드 딜이 썬더스트럭이 좀 압도적으로 빠른데요? 너무 차이가 많이 나는데?
And they have a little bit more trash count, so looking really good here from Thunderstruck.
Alright, Veximus, I mean,
용일 뭐 이상한 짓 하러 가는데 아 뭐 쫄 추가로 데리고 온 거죠? 램드 안에 모든
This is a surprising amount more boss damage, I would say, for on the side of Thunderstruck. They were able. Cheese pulled the boss. What, 5 to maybe almost 10.
지금 시합을 하고 있는 건가요?
But Thunderstruck are gonna kill the boss.
그냥 포지션을 저기로 잡은 것 같은데?
Yeah,
어,
I mean,
닥터제이
we're
죽었다.
gonna see how it plays out in the long run, right? Of course, that Demon Hunter is going to allow you to have a little bit more single target heavy damage rather than the Demon Hunter, I feel like. But yeah, Jay is down. Wait, has he taken that battle rest and died instantly?
No. He declined it, I think. I think he declined it.
썬더스트럭이 네임드가 빨랐는데 닥터제이가 죽으면서 그냥 비볐네요.
All good. For a second, I was like, no,
Well?
there was a tick. But yeah, we can see Cheese moving on here.
뭐 한 거지? 목류병으로 저렇게 패스가 돼요?
Dude, they dropped the Sigil of Misery on that pack. Are they gonna snap it with the? There's no way that they snap with like Sigil of Misery, right?
I don't.
저 흑마 버그예요? 흑마가 쓴 건가?
I think that was a
here-
really
I
cool
see what
skip.
happened. I see what. Yeah. Fragnis dropped the Sigil of Misery on the pack, and then he he gets threat with all the mobs and he melds it off. Okay,
Yeah,
so they're
he
not gonna be
melded it.
snapping with it. Yeah. Okay, this
Okay.
makes way more sense.
모르는 게 너무 많이 나와서 지금
Just figuring stuff out in real
뭘
time.
해설을
I mean,
해드릴 수가 없네,
60% we
이거는.
are seeing that Demon Hunter
모르는
here
거예요,
in
모르는
that
거.
dungeon, it feels like. So we'll keep a lookout on what's going on, but really nice a little play of Ricky here on that line of
이번
sight.
시즌에 흑마가 워낙
Making
없다
sure
보니까
most of
저런
the
류의
damage
유틸을
is
써본 적이
avoided
없어서
rather than putting it on Zatsy. I think that's really nice. And Thunderstruck, they're moving on as well. I think they played no, they also skipped the bridge. Okay. So basically same route so far.
근데 그 뭐지? 몹이 매지된 게 슬리버크라고 그러니까 기원사 목류병이긴 했거든요. 그러니까 몹한테 들어간 게. 근데 제가 알기로 저게 전투 걸리는 걸로 알고 있었는데 진짜 별짓 다 하네요.
I think that for me, that's something that's going to.
야 티즈 용일?
A little bit of time. Whereas if you look on the side of Thunderstruck,
저걸 뭐라고 읽어야 되죠?
had tricks on Lamike, and then once they've hit that,
드레이크?
there are some packs that are already on top of this Guardian Sentry. Where for Cheese,
아 목류병도 비전투
have some
매즈예요?
mobs as well. How did they get those mobs? Makes, did you see?
No, I was actually looking at the Bloodlust timing from Cheese because they used it on Vaximus and Thunderstruck
Yeah.
still had that available up until now, so they saved a little bit. But I'm gonna check and see how they got that because I'm not too sure because you can't really drag
근데
them
또
on unless
따라잡혔어요.
you leave
그러니까
combat.
뭔가
We do have a Shadow Melt on the side of Fragments.
그냥 딜은
It's ready and
썬더스트럭이 더
hasn't been
세요.
used for that. So it's a little
그러니까 이
bit
메인 조합인
questionable.
이유가
We'll
있겠지.
be able to figure it out in just a few seconds.
그냥 뭔가 치즈가 앞서 나간다고 생각하면은 그냥 딜로 따라와요,
Really
썬더스트럭이.
complicated as well. I don't know. It's really interesting that Cheese was able to get this snap dealt with. I wonder maybe Dratnos will be able to
그쵸.
figure it out. in the
그냥
end.
썬더스트럭이 더 빨라요.
Huh.
여기는 그 뭐야 도적 때문에 쫄도
Found
붙였고.
mobs over here. And look at that. Thunderstruck are able to get their Guardian Sentry killed off. Cheese pretty close behind. Both these teams at 44%.
썬더스트럭 오늘도 그냥 그 세 무리에서 그러니까 크로스 앞둘 무리에서 뭐 꽃을 붙인다거나 그런 플레이는 안 하네요. 이게 확실히 강화가 부담스러운 게 맞는 것 같아요.
Okay, let's just see, because they don't snap anything.
재밌는 거는 치즈 쪽 저 용일 자치 드레이크가 아 뭔가 좀 유틸을 되게 잘 쓰네요. 얼마나 유의미한 유틸인지 모르겠는데 아 저게 유틸 특성을 찍으면은 딜 특성을 찍기가 좀 빡세요. 그래서 딜 차이가 나는.
Yeah, and actually one of the advantages of having Demon Hunter on bolstering is like they can drop Sigil of Misery on top of all those small eagles.
그러니까 치즈가 이것저것 하긴 하는데
Whereas for Thunderstruck they have that mass root available, and if you look underneath Yoda's frame, you can see that like
이것저것 하는데 그냥 속도는 썬더스트럭이 더 빨라요.
To make sure that they're not going to be like, bolstering them up because those small eagles do bolster.
I just watched in a replay and tried to figure out how they got the ads. It didn't seem
썬더스트럭
like
세 번째
Reneko was
세 무리.
doing something. It looked like they came
시즌은
with
방금
fragments,
두
but
번째 무리
I
끝났고.
don't know how that would work, but yeah, we'll wait for Dratnos to figure that one out. I'm sure.
Well, so-
Maybe it is the Warlock pet.
썬더스트럭은 아마 저 그 새끼 새들을 뭐 대포 같은 거 쳐놨겠죠?
And I think
Yeah.
that's like the important thing to know is like
치즈 쪽은 산사태를 묶어놨네요.
And so they have like vanish, right? They'll vanish off combat. I wonder how they did it. It's such good tech.
We are going
this for
to
my
find it
keys.
out.
I need this for my dungeons, bro.
산사태 시간 동안
Yeah, really
시간을
cool to see
벌고.
that come out here as both teams chew through those ads, making sure that they have
치즈 뭔가 보는 맛은 있는데 떼진 않네요.
You can see that right now.
뭐 물론 그러니까 저 플레이어들이 못하는 게 아니고
Thunderstruck being able to kill just a little
조합
bit
문제겠지만
quicker. Now spawning the boss here, trying to get ahead, but still they have those 5 seconds, and I think within that 5 seconds run,
그게 궁금해요. 대학에서 진짜 저 조합이 좋다고 생각해서 들고 나온 건지 아니면 그냥 나는 내가 하는 거 할 거야 약간 이런 느낌인지.
But Adrenico also seems to have all cooldowns available, so everything ready for Cheese. I'm just not sure if they have the single target damage because on
이게 강화 주간에 사실 조합이 말이 안 돼요. 조합이 말이 안 돼.
when it came to that single target.
보욱도 광달러고 악사도 광달러고 암사는 단일 찍어치려면은 제가 알기로 광딜에서 희생을 되게 많이 해야 된다고 알고 있거든요. 그러니까 시간 차이가 날 수밖에 없죠. 그러니까 썬더스트럭은 명확하게 도적이 그 피를 맞춰줄 수 있는 딜러라서 거기에 이제 속거를 이용한 좀 그런 택틱들도 있고.
But that's one of the big advantages of that Aflock is like they're single target and specific, like they do a lot of single target damage and they do a lot of damage to pulls that are over 8 targets. They don't do a lot of like stuff that's in between. But this is a great situation for like the Af Warlock is like, oh yeah, it's going to be absolutely pumping on Croth. Where if you look on the other side at Thunderstruck, like that Feral Druid is not necessarily known for having the greatest single target damage to be able to just like burn.
썬더스트럭 지금 천둥에 정확하게 맞춰서.
Yeah, I mean the same could be.
아 아쉽다. 방금 용일 지팡이 그 어픽스에 맞춰갖고 지팡이 썼는데 바닥 때문에 끊었어. 아 지팡이 캔슬.
So they definitely do have that available to
나
them.
투필살기 썼는데 타이밍 맞춰가지고.
not as strong on pure single target, both the DK and the Feral, but still,
Ooh.
Thunderstruck has crossed down to 18%, and Cheese is still on 45.
I mean, we have a little bit of difference in strategy. Look at this Cheese here. Oh my gosh, they just triple through the orb. So they
썬더스트럭 킬러 다이? 전부가 없거든요?
triple through the fire orb.
방금 전부 왔고. 예. 아, 전부 있었구나.
And I think that both of these teams are going to kill Croth around the same time, makes.
크지 않네요? 전부 없는 줄 알았는데 전부가 있었어가지고. 나무에서 흑마가 좋기는 해요. 나무에서 흑마가 좋기는 한데 이런 말 하긴 뭐하지만 조합이 너무 구려요, 치즈가 지금.
Photo finish from both teams on that boss here as they're now moving on. Look at Drenico already having that Warlock portal down, making his team go super fast here and zooming across the platforms.
Every single player on Cheese did more than their counterparts.
그러게요. 갑자기 무슨 일이래?
I think that setup for how they were able to push that boss was absolutely.
나무 도착 속도가 갑자기?
Where we're looking at the Affliction Warlock. This is the Affliction Warlock.
뭐야 이거는 또?
And on Overgrown Ancient, a lot of this is going to
힐러 죽었다고 저걸 저렇게 갑자기 비볐나?
Now, Soul Flame is a talent that like whenever
보욱한테 뭐 슈퍼 마격 이런 게 있나?
it just like does AoE.
여기까지 비볐으면은 치즈가 이길 수도 있거든요.
Lashers die. Every single mob is going to like explode, dealing infinite damage to the other mobs around it.
Look at Fem, he is taking so much damage, but being safe here, Satsi taking care of his tank.
탱크만 뭐 보여주고 싶었는데 탱크가 죽었어.
But of course that pole is not under control. Drenico has to run here. You can see the feet burning, trying to get away from them. As Fem has been rest and they're trying to get aggro back, but Stuff is still out for the kill on Drenico, and he needs to keep his feet moving. On the side of Thunderstruck, things are looking a little bit more easy breezy.
와 흑마 이제부터 딜 좀 하나 했는데.
It's just so dangerous, and Fem going down here. I feel like they're doing a great job of recovering as Ricky also dies.
Ooh, so Ricky releases and he's going to be running back to the group.
암사가 전부가 있는데 죽었거든요. 아니 그 뭐야 그냥 일어났거든요. 아 이거는 전부를 받는 게 낫지 않았나? 지금 다 너무 커졌어요 일단 커졌어 너무. 지금 흑마가
off the back of that Fem and Ricky death. That's so bad for them. Makes.
Yeah,
야 진짜 치즈가 보여주는 건 많은데.
These flies that Thunderstruck hasn't dealt with, but on the side of Cheese, you can see those
계속 썬더스트럭이 빨라요.
pretty big, and now slowly but surely they are dying. But of course, with those seeds, they're making.
아 치즈는 탱 죽어서 망했네 이거.
The preferred state for any caster, really. But look, wait, what Satsi?
아 이거 용일 풀링? 야 잡스러운 거 진짜 많이 하네.
Okay, so.
이걸로 좀 격차 따라잡을 수 있나? 그 기술 나왔어요. 이건 뭐 이득이긴 해. 한 풀링 덜 할 수 있으니까.
Yeah. One of the big things about this boss too is you actually want to make sure that the branches spawned in like on top of the boss as well, because Soul Flame is going to be doing a lot of work here also. So these small lashers that get summoned on this boss are going to just absolutely explode and do infinite amounts of damage to these Echo Knights and to the boss itself and to the branch. But you have to make sure that everything is going to be stacked up.
썬더스트럭 그냥 빠르거든요 지금. 혹시 치즈 또 아까의 그 네임드딜 기적을 보여주나? 분명히 썬더스트럭 이기고 있었는데 갑자기 치즈가 역전했거든요. 네임드 속도. 15% 대 40%.
Is down to 14%, and Cheese with those extra Echo Knights
10%,
also trying to pull
10%,
very
35%.
close here. 34 on their side. Bloodlust available to both teams. Seems like they're going to hold on to that.
양 팀 다 블러도 있고 치즈는 붙일 줄이 조금 적어서 혹시 썬더스트럭이 이거 램드에 한 번에 붙여서 안 가면은 역전 당할 수도 있어요. 근데 이게 램드에 한 번에 붙여가는 게 쫄이 가다가 경로에 있는 쫄을 레드 내면서 올 수도 있어서 아 이거 썬더스트럭 한 플링 하고 가거든요. 이러면은 치즈가 역전했어요. 아 요다 죽었고 치즈는 이제 램드 붙어서 한 방 갈 거란 말이에요. 아 근데 로모이치가 안 좋아? 로모이치가 안 좋아? 아 이걸 로버가? 이거 로버 얼마를 기다리는 거야? 그래도 이거는 치즈가 이길 것 같긴 한데
We just saw Dranico's damage on that overgrown ancient, and so they'll be super good with this pull here. But on the side of Thunderstruck, they're trying to make way. They're also on the way to that boss pull.
야 치즈도 저 썬더스트럭이 사는 지금 저 플링을 하고 싶었어요. 기원사 3마리 좀 빡세거든.
Especially with these invokers, the invokers, you need to make sure that you're getting kicks on the arcane missiles. You need to make sure that you're not going to get gripped.
치즈는 지금 기원사 3마리예요 아직. 저거 짤이 세면은 좀 부담스럽긴 한데 쫄 빠르게 녹여주고 있고.
Assuming that they don't have any deaths, this should be great for them. As you do see that grip coming in, but Dranaco porting away. Echo Door Ghost is already at 60% HP.
치즈 뭔가 매력적이긴 한데.
Still rolling. Holy moly.
Yeah, Lust is still on. Some of the Echo Knights are slowly but surely dying, but that also
치즈는
means
이제
Bolstering is going
쫄만 다
after
죽으면은 뭐
the
변수는 없어요.
being deployed to the ethereal restorer, making sure that that's a target we also want to focus since it has a lot of HP right now and it is going to get bolstered. But like you said, the boss is melting. We are on 35% for cheese, and even though Thunderstruck is dealing with their stuff really well right now,
램드가 녹고 있대요. 녹아버린대.
Bloodlust now gone for both teams. Cheese is 5 seconds in the lead just by default due to the death penalty on the side of Thunderstruck. But you can see how close it is going to be. The restorer now slowly but surely
이거를 치즈가 이기는 게 뭔가
they have the trash count that they need, and now it's only those 8%
도적 없이 대학을 이기는 게 참
for cheese. And I think, like you said, we can look at that as a cheese victory in that Algathar Academy.
흑마랑 암사가 시너지가 약간 같은 계열이긴 한데 약간 자야라칸 같은 느낌. 자야라칸 같은 느낌이긴 한데 아 낭만 있네요. 네, 낭만 있어요.
Mike, can you do Dratnos?
That wasn't me. That was production. That was production's fault this time.
He's lying. That was him.
네 프레그넌스예요.
This time. Where's our victory screen as well,
Alright,
production? This is getting downright embarrassed.
All right, well, yeah, that was a great match.
해설자들도 겁나 웃고 있어요 지금. 이걸 왜 치즈가 이겼지 이런 느낌?
Incredibly smart and/or maybe potentially stupid. Oh, welcome back.
아 치즈
Sorry.
뭔가 잘하는데
Make it.
Yeah.
잘하는데 구린 그런 거 있잖아요.
Things that I'm glad happened. Wow, that was a really cool run out of cheese.
잘하는데 졸라
Awesome
구려
to
그냥.
see the Affliction Warlock.
졸라 구린데
getting
잘해.
And there was so much cool stuff that they were doing in this run as well. So
맞아 병신 같지만
go
멋있어.
through. There's about 5 different things that happened in this run that I think are worth pointing out. And it's kind of worth noting that the general texture of this run is if cheese don't do cool stuff, they're gonna probably lose to the general
마니님
slight,
안녕하세요.
I would say DPS edge that on
치즈
an average pull
치즈
Thunderstruck are gonna have, right? Like if you're looking on an average
그러게요. 보는 맛은 있는데.
going, Thunderstruck seems to be
아 맞아 그냥 병신 같아요. 맞아. 그냥 병신 같은데 이겼어 치즈가.
Alright, cheese have got to find some. They got to find some big time saves, and now they're playing without a rogue as well, right? So they're missing some.
아 이게 뭔가
that rogue bring here. Shroud of Concealment is one of them as well.
아 뭔가 응원하기 싫은데 재미는 있네요.
This next pull, they do the old Sigil of Misery into Shadow Meld trick,
which is the Demon Hunter Shroud.
Before seen
very-
tech, yeah,
It's very cool tech.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all know it, of course.
So if you're ever playing with a
It is
Havoc
very
Demon Hunter,
cool.
just ask them to Shroud, and they'll know what you mean. They'll do that. It's very good.
Yeah, yeah.
so-
Not me though.
Yeah, it's a really cool way that they handled that. But of course, the other problem that you have when you don't have a rogue is you don't have a good way of snapping mobs. Now,
썬더스럽도
that's somewhat
도적
solved in
없이-
this dungeon by the fact you only want to do the snap once. But you can see, okay, so two
모르겠어요.
people
저
got left
무빙은
behind.
약간
It was
의미
actually
없거든요.
Frankus that was the last person to
방금
come out,
용일
so
무빙은
it
의미는
happened.
없었어요.
And we don't actually
만화
have the video,
폭탄은
but
안에
I think he
근딜러들이 다
dropped Sigil
터졌고
of Flame and then took the jump, right? Because Sigil of Flame isn't going to get you in combat.
만화 폭탄 시합을 막힌 걸로 알고
You
있고
have 2 seconds before it arms, and you take the jump, and then you get in combat midair, but you're already airborne, and you get to do the snap as a demon hunter that way.
혹시나
So
그건 있을 수
that's
있겠네요.
really
저런 식으로 시합을 하면은 힐러는 안 걸리나?
If you're ever,
근데 뭐 힐러가 걸리든 말든 의미는 크게 없거든요.
Yeah, they just do everything. Shroud, Snap, Demon
Yeah.
Hunters, new utility class. Everybody learned that here.
저런 식으로 한점 플레이 하면은 구슬 먹기가 좀 편해요.
It does. This is
구슬
like
먹어주는 게
strength of the
편한 뭐 그런
right?
장점은
The thing is,
있는데.
it's also the strength of the unholy DK, and the unholy DK is, it's also kind of a strength of the
Yeah.
feral druid, right? So the affliction warlock was looking good, but it's not like Thunderstruck weren't also doing really well in this pull. Now Cheese ended up having like a tank death into a bit of a disaster pull. I think they would have been a little bit faster on this
좀
pull had it not been
이게
that, but it would have only been a little bit because
힐러도
the unholy feral combo
저런
is
무빙을 약간 신경 써줘야 되는.
but setting up for this Echo Knights into boss thing here, this cut a pull out of the dungeon for that.
결국은
This was the breaker.
자치 드레이크 잡기술이
Dude,
해냈다.
I think that tank death actually cost him so much time because then like the
Yeah.
ads were so spread and then like Soulflame wasn't able to hit
Yes.
those lashers and they were just like
이게 좀
so
이득이었네요. 결과적으로 봤을
that was
때는.
a pretty large time sink.
That tree boss as well. The tree boss is a huge time save. That's where the affliction lock saved you time, right? Like you kill that
Yes.
tree boss so quickly with an AF lock compared to anything else.
이
So,
다음 던전이 어둠달인데
it was that, and then the fact that they pulled trash onto that boss and
어둠달에도
saved
그냥
the
이렇게
full
들고
run. That's how they end up
이
being
조합으로 나오나?
a minute and a half, 2 minutes faster. Were deaths on both sides. Although if you look at Thunderstruck's death counter, a lot of that's going to be the death.
어둠달은 뭐 도비터가 아예 필요 없긴 하니까.
So those
Look
don't
at
count.
that Warlock DPS though. Holy
Yeah,
moly.
wow, is that a new record for us?
도우기 세긴
221K
세네요.
overall. I'm not sure I've
220K면은.
seen over higher than that.
That's just an
so
average
far.
warlock player.
Yeah.
That's just an average warlock.
도우기
player.
세긴 센데 아 뭐.
Warlock now undefeated.
아 세긴 센데 내 파티에 넣고 싶진 않아.
That's crazy. When are other teams gonna get them
아
out?
저도 약간
Alright,
Somebody tell
but-
Echo.
After seeing that, do you think we're gonna have the same comp in that Shadow Moon Burial Grounds?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
you
Maybe.
never play AF.
I didn't
You never
think
play
we're
AF
gonna
in Shadow
see that.
Man.
Okay.
It's an Algathar Academy only.
아, 마주?
It's really
Alright,
bad.
alright.
I think it would be really bad in Shadow Moon. We could see Death
이
Star.
고욱이 증명하긴 했지만
See
Yeah.
why it would be bad in there. No, it would be
We need
surprising to see.
to
내 파티에 들어오는 고욱이 증명해줄 것 같진 않거든요.
collect the
Oh.
3 infinity specs of Warlock. I think it could happen. I guess it probably couldn't happen, but yeah, I think you're only going to see Af and Algathar, I think. Although maybe if there's like a 20 ruby life pools, you could play it there as well.
뭐
But
고욱은
I think
옛날부터
it's
약간
just
키보드
so
피아노 친다
bad.
그런 얘기 많이 했었죠.
So is Jimmy just gonna play? Is Fragmus just gonna play Havoc Demon Hunter every dungeon again?
I think
Look
so.
at that!
So
Wow.
okay, here's Kroth. Here's the thing about Kroth as well that was so cool was the way that both teams
Oh my God.
played around.
크로스 네임드 딜이라고 하거든요 이게.
Maximizing into particularly you can multiply.
크로스 딜이 왜 이렇게 차이가 많이 났지?
Yes.
Thundering buff your cooldowns, the stun, potentially the haste buff as well.
썬더링을 잘 맞춰서 활용했다 뭐 그
You can
얘기인가?
get really insane value on Kroth, and you can see, look particularly at the top there at Cheese, you can see just how much they were holding for the end of this fight when they lined everything up and just sent the boss. home.
브레그넌스가 보통 악사가 아니긴
Looking like
해요.
they were losing time on this
확실히.
boss. You know, we saw a really good opener for Janako with the PI, but
악사가 단일 저렇게 뽑는 거는 그냥 프레그넌스 고유명사 아닐까요? 고유명사?
deleted it.
Yeah, that was
I
super
think
cool to
that-
see, and it's great to see that graph as well. I mean, Demon Hunter being so bursty, you know, if you have all of
그리고 뭐
your
일단
characters that, I think
악사는
that's so good and so smart of them.
악사 아 뭐야
Yeah.
흥
I think that
보흡,
the DPS numbers there,
암사 용일 딜에 5%씩 지분이 있긴
they're
하죠.
not perfect because like the DPS numbers are relative to that like the length of time that's on that Warcraft logs graph. But I think
그놈의
that
악사
like, building
지도율
the amount
때문에
of damage
진짜
that the classes are doing and stuff like that, and I think that particularly what Dratnos is doing now with the major
탄력들이
spikes being the
진짜
difference there, it is quite impressive that the Cheese were able to kill that boss so much faster.
악사가 탄력에 그 다태아까지 끼면은 진짜
Wow.
뒤통수
I don't know how we're gonna
뒤통수
top
존나
that out
때려주고
of Academy,
싶은데.
but we're gonna try and Shadow Moon Burial Grounds up next. The key level is also going up. This dungeon is one where we could see a lot of different stuff as well, right? We could see you can see mages in here. You could see I think it's a good Havoc Demon Hunter dungeon. I'm not sure,
I
but
think so too.
I think
And
it's-
근데 악사가 같이 해보면은 보는 맛은 있어요.
Except for the very first pull where they go very big, you
악사도 약간 죽으면 아 악사라서 죽었구나.
We're going to see the DK come out here, and Thunderstruck
mage.
Tettles has a mage. Yeah,
oh, the doctor is in the
Wow.
house.
Exactly. For anybody
어,
that's
잠깐,
not
치즈.
familiar, this
치즈,
is the
잠깐만.
main of Dr. J. He has been playing mage for a long
로그 못
time.
볼 거예요,
And,
아마.
that's definitely something we can expect to be very great for Thunderstruck. And now on the side of Cheese, of course, the turnaround.
지금 썬더스트럭 야드가 반대쪽 풀링하러 갔고 치즈는 용일이 풀링하러 간 것 같은데 닥터제이 화법이네요. 닥터제이 화법?
I think that this pull has been fairly standard for MDI teams.
닥터제이도 본캐
Doing
꺼냈네요,
double,
본캐.
doing like these double ritual bones packs into the boss. Now it's very dangerous, and it's one of those situations where we've seen
위험한
tanks-
플레이.
It feels like a 50-50 on whether or not your tank lives or dies.
썬더스트럭 바로 네임도 붙여줬고 치즈는 약간 끌렸어요.
And this is
Yeah.
a pull that just it puts so much pressure
이게
on your tank. Those void
어둠달에서
slashes,
화법은
especially
좋다는 게
whenever
증명이
you- Venom right
됐거든요.
now has
증명이
shield
돼
block,
있어요, 지금.
he has spell block and wall available to him.
이따가 이넴에서 네임드 녹는 속도가 아마 엄청나게 차이가 날 거예요. 그냥 화법 부족 뭐 그런 구도가 아니고 그냥 비교가 안 돼요. 내부 들어갔다 나와서 터는 바라딜이 진짜 이넴을 멜팅 하거든요. 완전히 녹여버려요. 어둠달 이넴에서 화법은 진짜 화산 그 자체예요, 화산. 이거는 3경기 가능성이 있어요. 닥터제이 같은 경우도 화법에 약간 땀이 있는 딜러라서 그쵸, 죽으면 휴화사지. 닥터제이가 좀 잘 죽기는 해요. 진지만큼은 아니지만 약간 진지 이미지가 있어요, 닥터제이도.
Thunderstruck is committing to the boss on. Is this the second Dark Communion? Is this boss a Dr. J gap? My God, they killed this boss 25% faster than Cheese. All right.
Yeah.
not bad for Thunderstruck. Holy moly.
이거 뭐? 이거 사제가 정배해놨던 줄이죠. 이거를 미리 좀 정배를 풀어서 안 끌렸으면 좋았을 텐데 이거 조금 아쉽네요.
But really, look at that damage. That's so crazy. Of course, it's not a tyrannical key, so that boss will have a little bit less HP, but still, 23 is not something you just blast through. And I really, really love seeing this here, and I'm curious how teams move on, but Cheese trying to pull even here. They have the same trash that they pulled into boss, but Cheese a
진지는
little
약간
bit slower on this boss here.
에코 개그 담당이잖아요. 저만 그렇게 느끼는 건 아니죠.
That's just like the amount of priority damage that mage was able to provide to that pack, on top of just like doing full damage to the boss, really helped them push that boss.
저는 이번 그 MDI에서 진지가 야드를 하면서 그렇게 제 생각보단 덜 죽었거든요.
I'm interested to see what they do next. They are deploying some mind soothes. That's the
의외로 맞는 옷이었을지도 야드가.
Mind soothe all of these mobs. You walk to the side, and then you are able to skip pulling the exhumer and any of these dreadbolt cast mobs. And looking at
네, 이제 닥터제이 존재의 이유가 나옵니다. 이제 램드 플링 뭐 썬더스트럭이 좀 미세하게 빠르긴 한데.
That's good for them.
All right, let's see. So something we have seen teams do here on Nalish, which is very common.
화법 바로 땡기고 있고.
Thunderstruck right now. Mike pulling these ads here into Nalish before the soul cast goes out. Now, some teams have even opted to do both packs, but with Fortified, I'm not sure if we're going to see that here. This key will have the Void Vortex first, so these mobs have been pulled. Actually,
이거 2, 3단 경화라서 짤 너무 세면 안 좋아요 지금 좀.
to do damage, but now the Soul Steal comes in, and that's just gonna make the ads not do anything anymore. You can see them stand there. They're not really stunned. They're not really rooted. But they're kind of now passive, allowing you to do that damage. You can see the
썬더링 맞췄고 법사 바라 털었어요. 썬더링 맞춰서 법사 내부 들어갔다 나와서 바라 털었고 램드 녹는 속도 보세요 이제.
Shooting up there. Wow, that's a lot of damage.
43%, 42%, 40%. 다 따라왔다고 생각했지만 이게 화법이거든요 지금.
So then he could absolutely just pop
29%.
off on the boss. Just being able to do full damage with that damage buff, having
바라 다
that
들어갔고.
spread to all of the bonus targets,
램드피 30% 차이.
and just cleave off of them like that is quite impressive. And they're going to get Nalish down. There's already a 30% gap in boss.
내부 한번 안 들어가고 마무리할 수 있나?
Within 15 seconds of one another? Like Thunderstruck's boss damage is impressively strong right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But then on the other side, if you're looking at that first damage difference and then the
마격타임이거든요. 이거 혹시나 영웅 강탈 나왔네.
So I feel like they can catch back up. There is a lot of
이거 영혼 처리 안 하고 나와도 상관이 없겠구나. 이거 그냥 쭉 달리면 되거든요. 이거 활용인지 모르겠는데 이 상태에서 영웅 강탈 들고 나오면은 클릭을 안 해서 버프는 없겠구나.
Thunderstruck here, making sure that they can clear the thundering buff, something we've seen in the past week as well. They just killed the
램드 그러니까 이넴에서 그 영웅 강탈 패턴 들어갔다 나오는 그 댐증 버프를 똘에서도 활용할 수 있긴 한데 램드가 죽기 전에 그걸 클릭하고 나오긴 해야 돼요.
Making sure you make the most out of the time that you have, just a couple of seconds, but in the end, that's something that always matters in the MDI, right?
I think that
초초 빅풀인데 이거 하다가 많이 터졌거든요 탱커들. 지금 박쥐까지 붙였어요. 이러면은 아마 박쥐 4마리, 박쥐 6마리에 거미 2마리일 텐데 거미 3마리?
This could be problematic because like that feral druid, that DK, like they really can start to lose a decent amount of like boss uptime, especially as compared to the mage plus priest combo on the side of Thunderstruck. But I think it's going to come down to like this last couple of segments. Thunderstruck already on that Kyrian worm. They're making sure to cleave down all these bats and spiders. The worm is going to be the mob that dictates the pace of this area the most. So they're going to be focusing it down.
화법이 확실히 어둠달에서 세긴 하네요.
I think that we saw a record from Dranako in the previous dungeon on that Affliction Warlock breaking 200k DPS. There is a possibility that Dr. J may break 200k DPS in a Shadow Moon Burial Grounds, which is a weird one. He is doing the most damage on a lot of these pulls. Now, this is
1렘 50초 차이 나는 거에 비해서 2렘이 왜? 저도 궁금한데? 2렘이 왜? 2렘이 왜 화법 쪽에 더 오래 걸렸지? 내가 그렇게 화법 2렘 좋다고 약 팔았는데.
Yeah, I mean, just look at it. Like you said, combustion was popped at the beginning of this poll, and this Kyrian worm, it is
끌링에서 뭐 끌린 게 있었나?
slowly but surely Soda also doing so much damage here. And Cheese, I mean, they are
화법 별론가?
but they're still just a little bit behind Thunderstruck, and we're moving into the next boss. Now, the question is, you're probably going to see the trash being added before Bone Maw, making sure that they have the more trash count out of it. But like you call them, the blueberries in a 23 fortified
요즘 저거 많이 하고 있는 거죠. 이 뒤쪽 땡기는 거. 용일이나 뭐 악사나 두루가 할 수 있어요.
Velo jumped around the wall. He pulled that pack, and that allows him to get 10 bonus count from these little skitterlings as well, which is a way.
이쪽 그 이상한 짓 좋아하는 용일도 당연히 갔겠죠.
This means that you have to do this pack. Typically with the boss in an MDI situation, I wonder if Cheese are going to be doing something similar. As we can see Zatsy. Oh, yep, Zatsy's also tagging that pack, and Cheese is going to be doing something similar, which is incredibly efficient. This match has kind of felt like a little bit of tug a tug of war kind of situation where
이게 뭐 가볍게 하고 있긴 한데 되게 어려워요. 내부 내부래. 반대편 풀링 해와서 냄드에 붙이는 거. 탱커도 엄청 아프고 얇을 것도 많고. 지금 용일 죽었어? 위험해요. 잠깐 탱 죽었어. 썬더스트럭 복구 되나요? 이거 복구 안 될 것 같은데? 전부 다 빠졌어. 이거 복구 안 돼.
That is devastating. Thunderstruck looked so good in that entire
Boring.
dungeon. They always had a little bit of a lead, but like you said, now wiping here completely.
내가 위험하다고 하자마자
They just held out a little bit longer, but they weren't able to get everything back under control after the mic died. First Velo, then the mic. The healer was
이거는
not there,
분노라서
the tank was not there, Dr.
달래기가 좀 바로
and had to
되었어야
lay
됐을 것
down,
같은데
which just throws them back so much. Look at all the way they have to run now, trying to get back to this boss. And Cheese, in the meantime, they're just having a good old time on Bonema. Of course, also taking some damage, but the trash has been dealt with. The spiders are down. It's only this worm and 2 blueberries that stand away from the final boss for Cheese.
썬더스트럭 다 왔는데 아쉽네요.
It's like I was talking about earlier. They are so slow on killing Bonema with this composition. It's dude.
이 두 팀은 근데 내일 리매치 할 거예요. 내일 리매치 한 번 더 보시죠.
It's so sad. Now look at this Thunderstruck. They have to do that pull again. They're pulling the bats and those spiders into the boss. Bonema has been engaged, but Cheese has something in the order of a 70% boss HP lead. In addition to that, they have 30 seconds of death differential on top of it. That's true.
이제는 정말 변수가 없네요.
This is not a normal boss. Like he has so much HP. That is something.
근데 이거는 어픽스 때문에라도 쫄을 안 붙였어야 됐을 것 같기도 하고. 근데 뭐 치즈는 성공했으니까 너무 결과론적인 얘기긴 하네요. 그러니까 법사 같은 경우가 게임들을 찍어칠 수밖에 없잖아요. 그러니까 치즈 같은 경우는 쫄에 어느 정도 무딜이 들어가서 사이패 진입 전에 안정적으로 쫄을 마무리해줄 수가 있는데 썬더스트럭은 딜러 구성이 화법이다 보니까 화법 같은 경우는 아무래도 네임드 찍어치는 딜이 세다 보니까 주변에 무딜은 좀 약하단 말이에요, 상대적으로. 거기서 사고가 난 것 같아요. 이게 아무래도 지렁이 3마리 나오는 타이밍에는 방역딜이 조금 위험해요. 지금 프레그넌스도 죽었잖아요. 저 뒤쪽에 있는 지렁이들이 남아있을 때는 그러니까 시간 단축을 위해서 저 지렁이를 안 잡고 처리를 하는 건데 거기에 쫄들이 남아있을 때는 굉장히 위험해요. 이거는 약간 루트를 바꿨거나 썬더스트럭이 저 부분에 좀 대처를 했었어야 되는 것 같네요. 너무 위험했어. 위험하게.
boss HP difference whenever Cheese is able to finish Ner'zhul, again, barring any like wipes or something.
Yeah, but first they need to get through these void spawns, and they're not easy. First one has been enriched.
분노
The
상태로
void pool's going out
한 방
before
터졌네.
the void spawn has been soothed. They're deciding to only soothe the other one, keeping this one enraged now that they're in the void eruptions, making sure that this void pulse that just now had gone out is not going to be enraged, knowing that they could live one. Really, really interesting technique from Cheese here as they move.
부합발로 썬더스트럭 이길 뻔했는데.
And still have bloodlust available to them now for this final boss. Thunderstruck on the other side. They're now approaching them, looking a little bit weaker-ish, but yeah, I mean I don't think they can claw it back here.
What do you think we're saving our lust for? You think it's gonna line up with like thundering plus power infusion plus Incarn kind of thing? We're just gonna save it for like another minute? Kind of what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they're going to do. Just looking at the cooldowns, I mean, Incarn, yeah.
막내는 정화라서 또.
Although Ner'zhul is dropping pretty fast.
이거는 시청자분들이나 저나 뭐 지금 가서 해도 똑같아요. 얘가 뭐 다를 게 있어.
But yeah, we'll see. It should be 22 seconds until that bloodlust gets popped for Cheese. And Thunderstruck dealing with these void spawns really
전부도 두 개나 들고 있고 뭐 단체로 저 선에 긁는 거 아니면
Cheese get their next thundering around like the 1345 mark here, and so maybe we're gonna be saving it for that. Just looking at their loss, they still haven't popped it. They could use it to just like down the wall if they're really concerned about like damage on that. But I think it's just going to be that 1445 mark where they're going to be popping that just to coincide with.
블러드는 아마 킵했다가 뭐 풀기에 맞춰 쓰거나 그런 의도였을 거예요.
This is like a safety play if they were worried about their wall damage at all.
야드 광폭화에 맞춘 것 같네. 지금 블러드 켜지면서 야드 광폭화 켜졌으니까.
This is definitely the safe play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now they had everything ready, like you said,
Oh,
right?
Dranaco got hit by the wall.
광폭화 뒤졌네,
They do
진짜.
have the battle rest, so it's not.
이거 내가 주시를 잡으면 안 되나?
Incarnate just gone out, so.
블러드 키면서 야드 광폭화 썼네요. 얘기하자마자 바로 야드가 뒤져버리네.
You know, there was a few seconds between that. Ricky now also taking a
Oh.
lot of damage, but Ner'zhul is down to 6%, 5%. It's dropping constantly. Bloodlust is still running, and in what could have been a turnaround, but
그쵸. 그러니까 이거 화신 키고 그러니까 모든 드루들이 화신 키고 죽으면은 한 번 기다려야 되는데.
Pretty happy with them.
Fem looks dead into the camera and smiles for all the fans as he knows they're spamming the cheese emote.
Wow, there it is. The big cheese coming in for them and the gamers.
Meta.
Wow. Well played by Cheese. But also, I mean, this one was kind of a reverse of the Algathar.
이거 3경기 조금 보고 싶었는데 아쉽네요.
Thunderstruck were up to, right? Taking that mage into the first boss and just dumping a combustion into it and melting all of those other mobs around was really, really cool thing to see.
Jay did a gross amount of DPS, and like the fact that you know that he's just combusting the boss and doing 450k DPS to all of this trash is absolutely absurd. He was doing so much damage.
아, 그 MDI 말고 그레이트 푸시라는 대회가 있는데 그건 이제 최고 단수를 뚫는 경쟁이에요. 이거는 특정 단수를 빨리 도는 대회고 그레이트 푸시는 최고 단수 갱신하는 대회. 그건 그냥 단수 높은 팀이 이기는 거.
The second boss as well, right? Where again you have a big ignite spreading for value onto the ads that you've pulled in, right? You have that spirit that you just pull, bring it over to the side, shackle it. Don't worry about it, and it will disappear at the end of the fight, right? Nice little bit of tech there as well. So that fight was again, I think, looking pretty good for Thunderstruck, but then just disaster struck for them on the old quaking with a bunch of ads that need to get kicked into maybe some of those kicks get missed into the worms in the back are spitting into the ads are raging and
이거는 힐러 죽은 것도 힐러인데 탱커가 터졌어요. 탱커가 터져갖고 망했어. 딸이 샜네. 딸이 두 개가 샜네.
Yeah, it's such a lethal key, right? When you have raging active on those mobs, when the key level is that high, we saw a bunch of random deaths coming out, right? We saw a death coming out on this fight for Cheese as well, but they were able to preserve their battle reses and they were able to recover pretty nicely, and they were able to take the series with the life grip to clear things.
네, 저거는 그냥 힐러는 한 번 죽을 수도 있는 사고였어요. 그러니까 딜러 중에 한 명은 죽을 수도 있었는데.
That we didn't get into too much is that Frack was also playing Gargoyle here, allowing him to have a little bit more single target. So
저거는 굳이 약간 과실 비율을 따지자면은 힐러 쪽보다는 탱커가 터진 게 좀 더 컸어요.
You can see that DK dam.
First boss.
First boss. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. That's more.
아, 1렘 딜.
So, well, you can see, the PI on the DK though with Lust on the pull, right? That is huge, and a lot of that, especially with the gargoyle, right? All that gargoyle damage that's single target, right? So that's big value. Similarly with Dr. J, like a lot of that is the ignite spreading, but a lot of it is just done to the primary target too. So
1렘 딜은 차이가 날 수밖에 없는 게
They saved one phase on that boss, right?
치즈 같은 경우는 쪼를 좀 많이 치다가 붙였거든요, 렘드에. 안정화 시간이 좀 길었고 썬더스트럭은 렘드를 그냥 플링하자, 렘드 도착하자마자 바로 붙여서 DPS 차이는 있을 거예요.
It is kind of a reverse of the
이 렘들은 생각보다 차이가 별로 안 나네요.
Thunderstruck that just had everything multiplied all together all at once, right? All of their cooldowns with their damage amp, and instead it was Cheese with the sort of
약간 바라가 끝나면서 딱 렘드가 마무리되는 그런 그림이었으면 좋았을 텐데. 그 정도까지 딜은 안 나왔나
Damage.
보네요.
Yeah, you got cooldowns
Yeah.
that are really big too, but you're also just kind of always blowing up that AoE.
It's just interesting because like if you looked at all the trash packs, it seemed like Cheese continued to catch up.
보면은
Like they
썬더스트럭이 딜이 더 셌어. 센 구간들이 많았는데 터져서 졌어요. 아쉽다 좀.
Thunderstruck just immediately just gaps them by 30% on the boss, and you're like, oh my god! All right, well this is gonna be a very interesting one.
Yeah, if it weren't for that
Absolutely.
wipe, this one probably does go the other way, which is really good news for Thunderstruck. Unfortunately, however, they're still getting sent down to the lower bracket, so they are going to have to fight their way down there. That does mean our chances of a Thundered versus Thunderstruck Thunderdome in the lower bracket have gone up as well.
Oh,
so
you just called it the Thunderdome.
they just have to,
The
if they
lower
each win,
semis Thunderdome.
그래도 뭔가 내일 기대가 많이
there
되네요.
is
Looking
series
forward to
that it's
that.
happening, right? I'm pretty sure we get the Thunderdome in that case. That would be
Something that's
what I'm
재밌게
pretty
보셨으면은
yeah.
후원, 구독, 좋아요,
Can't stand either of you.
팔로우까지
There you can
부탁드리고
That's a
TBD.
저 오늘은
TBD.
이 뒷경기까지 다 보기에는 제가 체력이 녹록하지 않아서 내일 이제 여기 4경기거든요. 아마 여기 뭐 썬더스트럭하고 썬더드 올라올 것 같은데 여기 아마 썬더스트럭하고 썬더드 올라오고 여기서 이제 썬더스트럭하고 치즈하고 붙고 몬카 치즈 첫 경기고 마지막 경기에 몬카 치즈 한 경기 더 하는 뭐 약간 그런 그림이지 않을까 싶은데 내일은 이제 몬카 경기를 2번이나 볼 수 있고 마지막 경기는 5판 3선이니까 내일은 좀 이제 상위권 팀의 경기는
We know in the Dismiss versus Bonebuds matchup.
내일 좀 이제 상위권 팀의 경기를 좀 풍족하게 볼 수 있을 것 같아서 브레이커는 어떻게 될지 모르겠네요. 근데 뭐 노쇼한 팀 별로 기대가 되는 부분은 아니라서 다들 좋은 밤 되시고 오늘은 일찍 가볼게요. 뭐 일찍이라고 하기엔 새벽 5시라서 내일 재밌게 보시죠. 내일 뵐게요.
The fact that Bonebuds had to practice it early, they probably should have a little bit more experience on it. Their timer was, I don't want to say like super close to Thunder's, but it was like competitive enough to where I'm like, okay, they were actually going to be able to put up a good time in that Azure Vault. I would be a little bit concerned about that AV if I was dismissed and maybe look to ban it.